I'm Latino. I speak Spanish. I have trouble with English. I come from an impoverished family. I had all those excuses to say, you know what, I'm going to throw my hands. I suck at life, and I'm going to accept defeat and lose.
Yeah.
You had a good role model.
But I had a good role model, and that's another part of this conversation that you're going to get into is that there's not enough of these role models.
Yes.
Dude, I know.
You know, it's like the government wants single parents.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the Army, you have this rehearsal.
Yeah.
You rehearse an operation. You're like, you have this whole battle plan.
I mean, I'm just like, I fucking send it. Wing it.
Right. You just wing it.
Yeah.
You know, which is totally anti what we've been taught in the Army.
Dirty.
You know, you usually like plan it. You do a recon. You set yourself up. You know, you rehearse it. You go over contingencies. Yeah. You could do the whole 1/3, 2/3 rule. You're like, all right, you know, we could, you know, we need to spend only 1/3 of the time to plan, 2/3 of the time to execute. You're doing all this stuff and reconning and rehearsing. And okay, the rehearsal didn't go right. What needs to change with the plan? And you guys just came in here like, you know what? We've never set up in a lobby before. We've never done this.
I've never really done this completely on the fly before either.
Never done this on the fly. Never done this in a lobby.
Yeah.
You know, tricky lighting.
Yeah.
Tricky microphone setup. Borrowing furniture that fortunately the
That's so fun.
you know,
Yeah.
it's
Something unique.
It makes it interesting, unique, and different. You know, it's like, hey, let's send it.
You guys
Can you hear yourself, or can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Do you want
4 inches from your chest, pile. 4 inches. How about now? Say something.
Can you hear me? Testing.
Testing
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yay.
Is Badillo? Is that gonna?
Badillo,
Badillo.
The actual
How did Greg say
Spanish pronunciation is Badillo.
Okay.
So that's like fancy. We probably couldn't say it that
Yes,
good.
that's how it's formally pronounced in Spanish is Badillo.
Okay.
But
Because you know the T8, the double L at the end makes a yo sound. So
Oh, okay.
but you know,
But
everyone
that-
said Badillo.
Dad always said Badillo here in the States.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So you really weren't saying it as wrong as Gregor said you were saying it
Yeah.
wrong. He made it like that's way wrong.
Rigel was just trying to do the English, Spanish, Spanglish accent version.
We're like normally we try to like do like interview style or whatever. I just wanted to just freaking hang out. Do you want to put this aside? Like
Whatever.
it's like as long as you can get it, still good for you. And this extends here if you listen to that you need it closer or not. But you're good.
Nice.
But yeah, it's already recording, audio's recording and stuff.
Oh,
but
cool.
I'll cut off the beginning part. And
Okay.
what's your first name again?
Same.
Luis.
Luis. Okay.
He's
Cool.
Lou Badillo without a middle initial.
You're a junior.
And
Okay.
I'm not junior. I'm Luis Javier Badillo.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a middle name. He doesn't.
Oh, that's like my stepdad. He doesn't have a middle name.
And then
father
my
does.
grandfather was also Louis Badillo, but he had a middle name.
Shit, you gotta hold that so you can say
Yeah,
that
okay.
now. All right, would you just freaking
do it.
full send? Welcome to the Matt and Monica podcast. Well, we have very special guests here. We got Louis Badillo and his father, also Louis Badillo, and we're just here in a random hotel and decided
Borrowing furniture
borrowing furniture
and a room.
yeah.
Actually, we're in like a lobby-ish
Yep.
area.
Guess what? It works. They're allowing us to do it, which is
Yeah,
pretty
it's
cool,
really
but-
cool. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Instead of being stuck in our house doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
going on location.
Hell
Yeah.
On a road show.
It's fun.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just get a little backdrop. I knew him from the Army. He was in my reserve unit out of Schenectady, New York, and just be one of those people that I overheard talk and kind of just judging how people interact with him. Everybody seemed to respect him a lot.
Oh, that's amazing. You didn't think I was obnoxious and loud?
I mean, I didn't say that. I didn't say that, but
Try to stay away.
yeah, but no, it's cool because you've always spoke your mind. I thought you'd be a hell of a person to speak to on a podcast.
Yeah.
Retired state trooper, still in. How many years you got in the reserves now, or you were active duty for a while, or were you just in
No,
the
I
reserves?
was Pretty much National Guard or reserves. The
Okay.
only time I was active was when I got mobilized and deployed
Oh, okay.
and
Yep.
attached to an active duty,
Cool.
duty unit. But other than that,
Cool.
I was pretty much a reservist the entire time.
Good deal.
I graduated in '97 from Marion military and became an officer initially.
Yep.
So we can back up and ask, like, why did you go for that?
I was always kind of a history buff when I was a kid.
Yep.
You know, he'll tell you I used to watch war movies, Army movies,
Yep.
documentary series about, you know, the Civil War, World War II, things like that. It always interested me.
Yeah.
And, you know, the backdrop of our story and how we got to be where we are today was kind of the motivation for, you know, I knew how far we had come.
Yeah.
And I had seen how similar families growing up in the United States in the old days have gone through those similar situations, and they always give back.
Yeah.
You know, they give back through some form of service.
That's awesome.
And, you know, I knew at a very early age that I was fortunate to live in the country that I live in now. Even, you know, coming from Puerto Rico and, you know, part of the United States, but I just said, you know, that I feel fortunate to live here in the United States, and I feel the best way to give back to the country that's given me so much and given me so much opportunity is to serve in the military.
Yeah.
That was really kind of my first, I would say that was my first passion, my first motivation when I was younger was, you know, I want to be in the Army.
Yeah.
And in the Army, when you're watching war movies and you're watching these documentaries and you're reading history and you're going to school and you're learning about these things, you're thinking, here in New York, West Point.
Yeah.
So I really didn't understand what it took to get to West Point,
Yeah.
but that's what was in my thought process was, I want to get to West Point. And really didn't have any mentor, coach, anyone that really kind of showed me the way. It was just something that was a far-fetched dream. I thought it was reachable, but I didn't realize how way out there that is.
Yeah.
So I was always the kind of kid, and he could back me up on this, that I was pretty studious. You know, I was pretty smart, but I wasn't very driven to study and get straight A's.
Yeah.
You know, I was just the type of person, I have a very photographic memory. And if I hear something, I'm like, all right, I get it, I understand it, and let's take the test. I don't need to go home and really study.
Yeah.
And I go to school and I get an 85, a 90, and I'm like, cool story, bro, let's go.
Yeah.
What's the next event? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was good with that. You know, I always felt like I was smart, but if the subject really didn't interest me,
Yeah.
I really didn't take the extra step to really look into it more.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how I've always been. If it really interested me, like history, American history, aviation, then I read into it more and I wanted to know everything about it.
Yeah. When you're
And then I
passionate
could-
about it.
And when you're passionate about it, you're just like, hey man, I want to know everything about
Yeah.
this. This is fun.
Yeah.
So I thought West Point, but then I applied to West Point. This was probably my senior year in high school. And they were gracious, and they said, listen, we understand you got your recommendation from the governor of Puerto Rico, and you have, you know, the minimum grade point average, and you have everything that you need to come here. I had a 3.4, 3.5 GPA, something like that in
Yeah.
high school. We only take the 3 9s and the 4 O's.
Yeah.
This is a very exclusive school.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, and I never had a high school counselor that's really sat down with me and said, hey, this is what it takes to get to West Point. This is really what you want. This is what it takes.
Yep.
You know, because I'm just another number
Yeah.
in the school, and I just really wasn't just another person.
Just
you know what I mean?
literally just a number.
Right,
Just
really
get
just
you
another
through.
person just to get me through. So that's at least that's what, looking back at it, I could have gotten that coaching and mentoring, and I probably still wouldn't have been there because I hated English. I couldn't get above a C in English to save my life.
Yeah.
And I always blamed it on my Spanish background. So, you know, I was like, hey, man, it is what it is. So, having that avenue shot down, I said, well, let's look for another avenue. And well, I still want to go to college because back then, I mean, you were pretty much told if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and you buy into that when you're a kid because your teachers influence you. You don't know any better.
Yeah.
Right? So I started looking at colleges, and I'm going here and I'm going there. I'll never forget this. I take him up with me to Champlain College up in Burlington, Vermont, I think it is where it was.
Yep.
And they're like, it costs $30,000 a year to go to school here, and this and that, a third, and you need tuition. That's just the tuition, and then you got the books and fees and room and board. And I'm like, all right, cool. Dad's got money for this. And I look at him and he's like, oh, I haven't been saving money for for this. Like, I've been struggling to live paycheck to paycheck and put food on the table and make ends meet. And like, I don't have a nest egg for you. You always assume when you're a kid, like, oh yeah, your parents are going to pay for your college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're led to believe.
Yeah.
And it just, we weren't of those means.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, I got to pay for this. And I was smart enough to know, well, I really don't want to take a loan for all this money, and I don't want to be in debt for all that money, because what if I don't have a job in whatever I'm studying? And then how am I going to pay this back? So, and I still wanted to do the Army, and I happened to go to Siena College here locally in Latham, and I met the Army ROTC recruiters.
Okay.
And they told me about the Army ROTC program. From there, I filled out an application, and there was a box on that application that said, would you like to hear about other military institutions and opportunities? And without thinking about it, I just checked yes. And that's when I got
Smart move.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Smart move.
and that's when I got the first package I got was from this military school called Marion Military Institute in West Central Alabama. And I have never heard of it, but they advertise themselves as the West Point of the South.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of it
The
either.
military junior colleges, and there was only 6 military junior colleges at the time across the country. And they offered a program called the Early Commissioning Program, where you get commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army in 2 years instead of the standard 4 years, like
Oh,
you
no
would at
shit.
West
Wow.
Point.
Okay.
So you go to SUNY Albany, you go to Siena, you go to ROTC. At the end of 4 years, you get commissioned.
Yep.
They offered a program where you got commissioned in 2 years, and then you had another 2 or 3 years to finish out your degree
Okay.
and continue on. Well, I ended up going to Marion. I think when we were driving down there, it was spring of '95.
Same day.
And it was the same day of the Oklahoma City bombing.
Right.
We were on
Oh, wow.
I-81 in the Shenandoah Valley when the
Right.
news flash came over that Timothy
That's
McVeigh
crazy.
had blown up the Murr building in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And so that's how I remember that trip. It's very
yeah.
specifically. It was like one of those events that you'll know exactly where you were when it happened. And we were driving down through the Shenandoah Valley, gorgeous, gorgeous Western Virginia, going into Knoxville, Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee. We filtered down into, North Georgia, Alabama, and I've never been down there before. I go down there to visit this school, and we walk around, and I see the structure, I see the bearing, I see the professionalism, and it reminded me a lot of what you would see at West Point.
Yeah.
And the admissions guy took us through and showed us the campus. It's one of the oldest campuses in the country. The actual chapel used to be a Confederate a field hospital during the Civil War.
Okay.
Wow.
So they treated soldiers during the Civil War, Confederate and Union. It was primarily Confederate. There at this chapel, and over the years it became a college, and then from the college, at Howard College, it turned into Marion Military Institute. And I remember leaving that college impressed, and I thought about it for probably 2 hours. It took we left Marion and we came down through the Shenandoah, and we decided to go back through Montgomery, Atlanta, and stop in Washington, D.C. in the nation's capital on the way back up. So we could go visit, the Treasury building. I always love to see how money's made. And then before we continued all the rest of the way up to New York, well, somewhere between Montgomery and Atlanta, I looked over at him and I said, that's where I want to go.
You knew.
Just like that. I told him, that's where I want to go.
Cool.
And he's like, okay, that's where you want to go? Let's make it happen. So did the application. I got a $6,000 scholarship from school. I got another $2,000 scholarship from joining the band. Another funny story, because my high school band teacher, she's probably still alive out there to this day. And if she's listening to this podcast, I'm going to laugh my tail off, because she told me, I believe it was my sophomore year of high school, you suck. You are absolutely terrible at playing this instrument. Do not ever play an instrument ever again.
No, was she right?
Huh?
Was she right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
I
okay.
sucked.
All right.
I was terrible.
Better.
Right? So, this absolute epic legend of a lady at
awesome.
Marion, the band director called Deborah Street.
Yep.
Heavy Southern accent. Lovely lady. She's just so boisterous, and she's just got so much positive energy. And she comes up to me after hearing and seeing on my application that I had a previous experience playing an instrument. She comes up to me. She's like, "You played an instrument?" And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am, I did." "What instrument did you play?" And I'm like, "I played the clarinet, ma'am." "Well, we would love to have you. We'll give you a $2,000 scholarship." And I'm looking at her. I'm like, this lady's going to, and $2,000 is not like $2,000 nowadays. Back then, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, in my mind, when this lady's telling me this, I'm like, is she nuts?
Like, does she know how I
Like,
play?
Exactly. So I look at her. I'm like, "Ma'am, just like this, ma'am, my high school band teacher told me to never play an instrument ever again, that I suck, and to never touch an instrument because it was like blasphemy for a band teacher for me to touch an instrument and play an instrument." And she looks at me with her sweet Southern charm, and she says, "Don't worry about that, Mr. Badillo. We'll teach you." And God bless her heart.
Yeah.
I started out as a third chair clarinet, which is like the bottom of the barrel. I'm like doing like basic tones my first year, basic notes. I'm like the background music, you know. I'm like that. Hey, don't play too loud because we don't want to hear you. Just
Pretend
make
you're
some
playing half the time.
Right. Make some noise, but you know, you might screw this whole performance up. So, you know, don't try to do too much, right? But I kept practicing.
Yeah.
And I kept being intense about it because I saw everyone else playing, and I said, well, I don't want to be the weakest link.
Yeah.
Because that's just not my style.
Yep.
I want to practice. I want to get good at this, because if I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to be receiving this money from the school to do this, I want to be good at it.
If only everybody
Lo and
shared
behold.
Yeah, right.
Lo and behold, my second year, I'm a first chair clarinet doing solos.
that. Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
It was incredible.
And you can still play now, today?
Oh, probably not. I haven't touched an instrument in 25 years.
He's like,
Next episode.
surprise, pulls one out. Oh, man.
I haven't touched an instrument in 25 years, but yeah, I was doing West Side Story solos, like Maria on the clarinet.
No
Do you have any on video?
Oh no! Video back in the '90s was those big old cassette recorders, and
that'd be cool to see that, though.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool, though.
yeah. So that's how I ended up going to that school. I ended up, doing 2 years there. I get my commission in the Army. I joined the New York National Guard. This is one of the things that if I could go back and do it all over again, I'd say, you know what? I'm going to stand in that line that I didn't want to stand in any more lines at MAPS. And you know how that MAPS is.
Dude, that's brutal.
It's like one line, go stand at another line, and you finish with that line finally, and then you got to go stand at another line. And the whole time you're standing in these lines, in the old days, the drill sergeants they're chewing you out.
They still were when I was, probably not now, but.
No, probably not now, because, MEPS is kind of like a sterile area.
Yeah.
But back then, they're still screwing with you when you're in the hallway waiting for an hour or two to talk to the blood work person.
Oh, yeah.
So you get your blood work done. Oh, now you got to get your eyes and ears checked, and that line's another 2 hours. It's like, standing in Disney World but having no fun on any of the rides.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you want to be an aviator, they tell us, you have to stand in this line, and they got to dilate your eyes. I was 17 years old. I'm like, what the hell's dilating my eyes? Oh, you got to put eye drops in my. I hate eye drops. I still can't put eye drops in my eyes these days.
Really?
And they're talking about putting this stuff in my eyes, and I'm like, that doesn't sound cool. And I'm sick and tired of standing in lines and getting yelled at. The hell with that. I'm going back to the barracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to get out of the line of fire, because when you're 17 and you're getting yelled at by these big bad drill sergeants, you're thinking to yourself, I just want to get out of the way,
Yeah.
man. I want to get out of the
Get
line
outta
of
here.
fire. I want to go like disappear somewhere
Yeah.
and not be seen. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
You remember those
I was
days.
27 though when I went in, so I was
17.
and I was already I worked as law enforcement for a couple years before that, so I was like,
That was probably so different for both of you.
Yeah, so you had a
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
different
oh,
Can't
experience.
even
I would have been
compare.
shitting my pants at a young age,
Yeah.
but I was 27,
Yeah.
like they're doing their job, you know.
Right.
you
And
know.
Yeah.
what year did you go?
I'm 2014.
Yeah, so I went in 95.
Yeah.
95.
Holy shit!
in
How old are
Fort
you?
Knox. I'm 46.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm old, dude.
Okay.
It hurts.
Yeah. Wow.
things on my body that
He's like, I'm old.
things on my body that I swore up and down that would never hurt. And he used to tell me, "Don't worry, wait till you get older."
Yeah,
I'm
same.
finding out now. I'm like,
I feel that
Damn.
too.
She just turned 40, so
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Lies.
it's downhill. I
Yeah,
know.
dude.
lies. So yeah, so that was it. I joined the National Guard. I went to do tanks because I saw a video my very first day at ROTC. They showed this motivational video of the Gulf War, the Battle of 93 Easting, where we wiped out an entire Iraqi division in like an hour, and we didn't lose any vehicles.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, when you're 17 and you're young and you're ready to go and take on the world, you're like, I think I could do that. That's
Yeah.
hardcore.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went into the tank to be a tank commander because he loved to blow stuff up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was
that's
fun,
fair.
huh?
And there
Yeah.
he had the ability to blow anything
I was like,
up.
I'm going to be a tanker, man. You know, I was like, this is hardcore, man. I
Hell
was like,
yeah.
As a tank platoon leader, I have 4 tanks in charge of 16 people with all this military equipment, multi-million-dollar operation. I'm like,
I can do that.
hey, I could be 19 years old doing this.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow, that's so young.
Does the Army really realize what the hell they're doing? I'm like, all right, let's go, send it. You know what I mean? Let's do this. Yeah, I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Now, looking back at it, I should have stood in that MEPS line.
Yeah.
I would have saved myself thousands of dollars if I stood in that MEPS line, got my eyes dilated, and went into Army Aviation.
Yeah.
I would have gotten
Yeah.
my helicopter training done. I would have had a plethora of experience flying, you know, heavier equipment. I would have been a lot more proficient flying helicopters, and I would have ended up where I wanted to be, ultimately in the state police a lot sooner.
Yeah. But you got to think where life brought you, where you are now.
It is
Yeah.
what
You
it
know,
is.
like,
Yeah.
'cause, I mean, from on the outside looking in, I mean, I don't know you on a very personal level, but it looks like you're doing very well for yourself. So, a beautiful wife and family, and
Yeah.
you know,
He's best.
He's doing very well.
yes,
And it's all hard work.
I'm doing, as my friend Dave Ramsey says, better than I deserve.
Aw.
I'm very proud of him.
yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
and that's something I heard my dad say for the first time. You know, I was not that long ago, but it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and he's like, you know, I never told you I'm really proud of you, and there's nothing better than having your parent proud of you.
Those simple
Yep.
words mean so much.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's cool to be proud of your parents too, though, and like the way you talk about your
Well,
dad. You know, it's,
Yes.
He was the inspiration. I saw,
Yeah.
you know, even though I wasn't a fan of it when I was a kid, and you really don't understand, like,
Yeah.
why is dad always gone? You know, why is dad always working? You know,
Yeah.
why can't dad sit down here and play Nintendo with me and, you know, spend time with me? You don't understand that as a kid, but as you get older, it starts to click. You're
Yeah.
like, all right, this guy is busting his tail off so we could have what we have.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know, and it may be modest, but we're good.
yeah,
You know, and
We were happy.
we were
Yeah.
happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
especially, you know, when you look back at the very beginning
yeah,
and, you know, my earliest childhood memories. And I remember going to the grocery store when I was 4, 5, 6 years old. It was Pathmark in Long Island. Remember that place?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it still exists, if Pathmark still exists in Long Island, but
It's a supermarket chain.
supermarket chain,
Okay.
kind of like Hannaford or
Yeah, yeah,
Market
yeah.
32, whatever is up here now.
Yeah.
We went to Pathmark down in Long Island, and when we would come back home in our crappy, what year was that Volkswagen? The Beetle that we had, the
I think it's
60, 68,
60 something.
the crappy Volkswagen Beetle that
Yeah.
was the first car that he bought. It was a beater. I remember it had a hole in the passenger floor that he had to cut a piece of plywood. The salt had rusted out a hole in the passenger floorboard.
Yeah.
And you could see straight down to the pavement. It was like a Flintstone car. I remember. You remember that, right?
I remember your mom got.
It was mom would get all wet.
I went over the puddle and all the water came in and she got all wet.
Yes, I remember. Listen,
That's how poor
that's
we
how
were.
photographic my memory was at a young age. I remember these things.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, in the back seat of a Volkswagen Beetle, piece
Yeah.
of shit Beetle, were the fumes because the engine was right behind me.
Oh yeah.
And you had all the fumes in the exhaust, and it stunk. So here we are in our modest 1960s Volkswagen Beetle that he eventually got a piece of plywood and cut it out the shape of the floorboard
Yeah.
and put it so this way the water wouldn't splash and
Gotta do
wouldn't
what
get
you
my
gotta do.
mom wet
Yeah.
anymore.
Yep.
And that's how we rolled back then, right?
Yeah.
And we would buy our groceries. We would go into this house, which was my grandfather's old house, right?
Yeah, my dad's house that we used to live back when we were here in the States.
Okay.
Right. Way back in the day, they used to live in this house. It ended up turning into a rental.
Yep.
And they weren't renting it out because in the late 70s, the recession, Carter
Yeah.
administration, inflation, gas shortages, all the bad things that were happening in the late 70s, there was probably a he could correct me, like a 3 or 4 or 5 year period where
Yeah.
he wasn't able to rent out the house.
Wow. Yeah.
And the house was abandoned.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And he's paying all these taxes on this house that he's not using,
My
that he's
dad.
not renting, my grandfather. He's paying these New York taxes, which aren't cheap by, even in 1978,
Yeah.
you know, in Long Island standards.
Yeah.
He's paying all this money, and he's a security guard in Puerto Rico. And he's like, why am I paying all these money in these taxes? And I already own the house scot-free and clear, and I still got to keep paying these taxes. So he sent him up to New York with the mission of sell the house. And as soon as you sell the house, we'll take the proceeds of this house and go back to Puerto Rico and live life happily ever after.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I was a year old,
Yep.
and my mom was young. And he didn't want to leave me and my mom in Puerto Rico by ourselves under the care of grandma and grandpa, her parents and her in-laws, while he went to New York to sell the house. So he said, no, we're all going. To the strong objections of my grandmother, who said, please leave the little boy
Aw.
here. Because I was the first son.
He was-
I was the first grandson, the first boy in the family in
Yeah,
like
they had two
a
girls.
generation.
Okay.
Right?
Right. They had two
So-
girls and he was the only man.
Yep.
Right. I was the only
Male.
Right, the only male in the family. So my grandmother wanted me to stay. And my dad was like, nope, we're all going. So we all packed up. How much money did you have in your pocket?
$100.
Jeez.
$100.
Oh.
Knowing my mom only spoke Spanish.
Wow.
I only spoke
He
Spanish.
spoke Spanish.
He spoke Spanish, but he knew English because he grew up in the States but moved to Puerto Rico when you were 14?
12, 13.
Yeah, 12, 13 years old.
Around there.
And then he finished school down in Puerto Rico. Met my mom in Puerto Rico, got married in Puerto Rico.
You were born in Puerto Rico?
I was born in Puerto Rico, a year there, go to New York to sell this house. That was the mission. Sell it, grab the money, go back to Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And I could have been in my tropical island. I could have been like enjoying the beach. And
How did your mom feel that whole time? Was she like, all right, let's go?
That's
Yeah.
more of a question for her. Oh, for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was happy to go somewhere different.
Oh, okay.
So
That's pretty freaking wild, man.
Yeah.
we go up to New York in 78.
Yeah.
He's got $100, and I'll let him take it away from here because he knows the story. I was a year old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did similar to what my father did when he was a young kid. He grew up very poor in the city of Aguadilla in Puerto Rico. My mom grew up in the mountains, San Sebastian it was called, and they had cows and pigs and they had coconut trees and orange trees, so they were
Sugar cane.
okay.
Lots of sugar cane.
Yeah.
Lots of sugar cane, right. So my mom lived pretty good with her mom and dad and her brothers and sisters, but dad was different. He had two other brothers, and then they were poor and they grew up without a father. So they had a hard time. So the word was, hey, go to New York and there's work. So somehow grandma got a loan from somewhere. It was like $50 or $60. She bought my father a pair of shoes so he could go to graduation of high school with a pair of shoes, and the rest of the money, she bought him a ticket to go to New York. On my mother's side, she had a couple of brothers already in New York and sisters, so they sent her to New York. It's another story how they met. This is very interesting. But they met and they started to work. And sometimes I never saw my dad and mom for weeks because they were working so much. Trying to, again, support the family. And we lived pretty good. They had a dress factory in Bayshore, Long Island. And my dad also bought a restaurant that was next, like in a strip mall. And he ended up with the restaurant there working his tail off. And with the dress factory, they had nine or 10 ladies sewing the dresses, and they had one person ironing them, and then you had to put plastic on it and to hang them up. And then once a week, the truck would come from New York City and pick up all the dresses and take them back to the garments section. So they had a lot of work with that. And with the restaurant, they used to sell beer, soda, food, rice and beans, and some other types of foods.
What was the name of that restaurant again? That was my favorite.
Yeah. And
What was the name of the restaurant? You remember?
let me see if I can remember.
From Popeye?
Oh, no, that was later.
Oh, okay, that was later.
Yeah, the first they had the restaurant with the rice and beans things, but they changed the name. After that, I don't know why, Dad all of a sudden decided one day that he's going to make it a hamburger place. So instead of having Latin food, he had hamburgers and hot dogs and milkshakes
Okay.
and French fries. And he named the place Wimpy's Burger.
Wimpy's Burger.
Wimpy's Burger. And this is
Okay.
before McDonald's, and this is
Yeah,
This-
Wimpy's from Popeyes, because he was
Okay, yeah.
Wimpy's in the cartoons. Popeyes was
Yeah.
always eating a hamburger.
Always eating hamburgers.
Right?
That's funny.
So he came up with that name.
That's great.
And this is before McDonald's and Burger King and everything else. So if that would have been, Dad was good with business, but if he would have been a little bit more an entrepreneur, I think, he could have maybe franchised that.
Yeah.
And he would have been really off,
Yep.
really well. But, and again, this is around 1960 when this happened. Well, anyway, they worked their tails off.
And you worked your tails off at Wimpy's.
I worked my tail off too because I love to work also. And, I would help Dad with the restaurant. In 1966, Dad got tired of the taxes and the cold weather in Long Island. So he says, I'm going back to Puerto Rico with the idea of putting a car wash system together. Because they washed cars in Puerto Rico back then in 66 by hand. There was no automated machines or anything
Yeah.
like that. And I remember going to one of these business meetings where they had automatic car wash. And they were selling these units for like $35,000 that would roll on bars, and they would wash the cars with brushes that would turn. And Dad said, boy, I think that business would do very well in Puerto Rico because they do cars by hand, right? So he ends up putting $5,000 down, which was a lot of money back then. And he becomes, they give him the opportunity to be the franchise seller of these machines in Puerto Rico. And then at the same time, he was going to purchase 2 of them and put them in this one area in Puerto Rico to start the business with the idea of putting more of them all over the place. Well, the company went bankrupt. They had lost the $5,000, and he never completed that project that he also wanted to do. So it kind of fell. He lost his money, and he just went to the University of Puerto Rico and became a security guard, like a campus police.
Okay.
And he did that until he retired. And Mom was really good with dresses, so she was working with a well-known company in Puerto Rico that made real fancy dresses, and she was kind of the head person to sew these dresses.
That's
So
cool.
Mom made pretty good money, and it was kind of off the books too.
Yep.
So that's how that section happened. And in 1975, I married my wonderful wife. We have 49 years. It'll be this year together.
49 years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My parents were married probably 60, 65, and my in-laws the same thing.
Wow.
So it's we're a tight family. And like Louis was saying before, Dad wanted to sell. He bought some property because he was doing well, so he bought a couple of houses, bought some property. Some he sold, but he had the house there, and it was a pain in his side.
Yep.
So that's when I said, yeah, I'll go over there and, sell it and whatever, in 78. But we didn't end up selling the place until 84, 1984. It took 6 years to sell the place.
Wow.
And then
It was
by
a bad
then,
economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about early 80s. You look at the history of the early 80s, late 70s, the interest rates on
Interest
home
rate
mortgages
was-
was like 20%.
right.
It was ridiculous. People are complaining about 6.5% now. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I first got here, I only had $100 in my pocket, and I needed to move, have something to drive and go to work. Because my father always told me that when he came here, right away the next day he started working, and he did everything he had, basically working hard with my mom. And I saw that because sometimes we never saw our mom and dad for weeks because of the restaurant and the dress factory.
Yeah.
They were working hard. And our grandmother brought us up, through the years. So I came down. I said, "Well, try to sell the house. I am going to start working right away." And I found a job at a coal factory in Farmingdale, I think it was, in Long Island. And I started working there, with always the idea of looking for a better job. And I worked there, and then all of a sudden I got a better offer someplace selling pizzas. I had to drive a station wagon with fresh pizza, and I would go to downtown Little Italy and the Bronx and Brooklyn, all over New York City, and selling these pizzas. And then from there I kept looking, and I got a job at Enterman's Bakery, which was probably the best paying job in Long Island back then. And it was the good part about it was right across the street from where we lived. So I walked
Nice.
across the street. So I said, well, this is really good. I'm going to keep my job selling pizzas, driving back and forth to the city during the daytime. And I was working the night shift at Enterman's Bakery.
Yeah.
And you come home in the morning with some Enterman's donuts or coffee
Oh,
crumble
you remember
cake.
that?
Remember that.
You can still
To
taste it.
this day, I remember that pound cake showing up, and we would have pound cake for breakfast with a cup of milk.
That's
Still-
pretty
I
cool.
still
Memories.
remember that
Yeah.
because you didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Like you literally you're struggling.
Yeah.
You don't have anything.
Real
so
struggle.
It's a real struggle. Like
It's a real struggle, right.
people don't understand what real struggle
Yeah.
is nowadays. There's just not enough of it.
Your Amazon package is 2 days late. Oh,
Oh my god!
cannot believe
exactly.
that is
There's
a
just,
thing.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's oh my god! I don't have internet. No,
I know.
oh
Or the
my
newest
God.
phone.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
oh my god! Exactly. I don't have the newest iPhone.
Yeah.
No. We literally were like, it was like a complete joy to have a piece of pound cake that came from Enterman's because he worked all night, and sometimes they were getting ready to throw stuff out that was expired,
Expired, yeah.
and he's like, instead of throwing it out, he would grab it and be like, "Hey, I'll
Yeah.
take it home,
Yeah.
and we'll eat it."
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's the little things. Like,
Right.
you appreciate
Little stuff.
that. Yeah.
Well, while I was working for Enterman's Bakery, it got to the point where I couldn't just handle that many hours. And I remember on the way back home after working the day shift with the pizza, I fell asleep driving a car on the LIE. And I woke up just in time to stop, put the brakes on, and I just tapped the car in front of me. I said, that's it. I can't continue like this.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill myself. So I told the place and the pizza that I was, going to have to leave because I just couldn't work those two jobs. It was too many hours and not getting enough sleep. So I stayed with Enterman's, and then one day, I always wanted to be a police officer. And in Puerto Rico, I almost became one, but since I was studying at the University of Puerto Rico, I said, nah, I think I'm going to stay here studying instead of going to the police force. But when I moved, Suffolk County PD was a big police department, and they were paying very good money, a lot more than what Enterman's was paying. So I said, always looking for a better job, right? So I knew this lady, her name was Lisi Guanel, who was the owner of the strip mall where my dad had the the restaurant and the dress factory. She owned she had it actually in a grocery store in one of them. So I knew her, and she was involved in politics. So I said, no, let me go ask her to see if she knows how I can get into Suffolk County PD, because it's very political, right? So she said, oh, no, they're not hiring anybody, but you know what? The troopers are hiring, and they're going to have a test pretty soon. And you're big and tall, and you could be a good trooper. And I says, what's a trooper? Yeah, it's the guys with the big smoky hats.
Yeah.
This is the way she explained it, right? I didn't know. I'd never seen a trooper before. My dad used to talk about them, but I'd never seen a trooper before. So I said, okay. I submitted my application. I got a letter saying, hey, take the test at Stony Brook.
Stony Brook or Albany?
Yeah.
Stony Brook?
It was one of the colleges in Long Island. Anyway, I went there, and when I walked in and I saw the troopers in gray uniform with their shiny shoes and the belts and the smoky hat, I says, yep, that's what I want to be. So I took the test, and I was fortunate enough to start in '81. So I left a job with Enterman's in '81, and I became a trooper in 1981 until I retired from there in, I think it was August of 2005.
Wow.
And I must say, the starting pay was really, really bad. It was only $12,715 a year.
Wow.
And I had to travel to Albany, and I had to pay like another $40 for my meals during the week. Meanwhile, I made 20 grand with Enterman's Bakery the year before.
Oh, wow.
So you see the difference.
Yeah.
I'm almost half in pay. But I knew that at the long run, it was going to work out better. And it did.
Wow.
I had a great career with the state police. I became a sergeant in like 7 years later. Then I became a station commander, just higher ranking, and then I retired as a zone sergeant
Awesome.
Yeah.
in 2005.
Wow.
So that's
freaking
basically
sweet.
it. I always working and looking to make an honest buck.
Yeah.
While I was working, I had the opportunity to buy a Victorian home in Saratoga Springs, an old home right here in town. I threw one of the guys out. I kicked him out, and I remodeled his apartment, and I rented it I rented it double because it was all brand new appliances, everything. The apartment was gorgeous, so I doubled the rent. I kicked the next guy out, and I had, before you know it, I had three brand new apartments,
Wow.
making really good cash flow.
Yeah.
So I had Saratoga Springs officer came in one day and said, hey, Louis, you did a nice job. I painted the house. All the neighbors were happy because the place now looked nice.
Yeah.
Says, hey, you selling? I says, well, if the price is right. So I bought it, I think, for $115,000, and I put about $60,000 into it, right?
Yep.
So I had about $175,000 roughly into it. So he comes and looks at the house, and he says, I'll give you $225,000 for it. This is just after I finished remodeling everything, so now I'm making a nice buck, right?
Yeah.
So I said, and I don't know why, I said, give me $250,000. And he said, sold, just like that, real quick. So I sold the place for $250,000.
I was so mad. I
But
was
you know
so
what?
mad.
I had to write a check to IRS for $10,000 because of the capital gains. And that really hurt me. I was so mad myself. But this officer sold that house 2 years later for $450,000.
Oh my gosh.
I sold it too cheap.
That's why I was mad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
But anyway, I made some money on that.
Yep.
When the Beanie Baby craze came up, before the Beanie Babies, Louis one day,
As a
once-
kid,
as a
teenager.
kid, I purchased some baseball cards for him, and he's playing around with them, looking at them, and he has this guide, and they're worth this much and that much money. And he says, look, Dad, out of that pack of cards, it costs like $1. We could sell these cards for like $4 or $5. I said, oh, that's pretty good. So we buy a couple more cards, and we grab a couple more cards, and this and that, and all of a sudden, we went to Glens Falls someplace.
That's right. Our very first, we bought a bunch of cards. I introduced them to, I just like to collect baseball cards when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I used to trade with my friends, Ryan Sandberg, Tony Gwynn, all the stars in the 80s, right? And I just we would get on the school bus and, we would, each all have our, hey, you got this guy, I want Tony Gwynn's rookie, and we would trade and exchange with amongst ourselves, not really knowing what the hell we had in our hands.
Yeah.
Right. And like he said, I showed him a price guide one day because my buddy had a price guide that his mom bought for him, and it was an older version. So he gave it to me, and I was like, Dad, look at the prices of these cards, and and he's like, oh, that's interesting. So we bought, like he said, some more cards, and they were having a baseball card show. It wasn't really a baseball card show. You could set up a little 8-foot table to sell baseball cards at East Field in Glens Falls. That's where it was. I think there was a single A affiliate for some major league team that was playing back then at East Field in Glens Falls. So we went there and we set up this 8-foot table. And literally, it was just like some shoe boxes with the cards. And we said, any card in this bin here, 10 cents a piece. Any card in this bin here. Because I knew who was good and like, no, this guy sucks. We take him aside, he's 10 cents,
Yeah.
This guy here, okay, he's a pretty good player. Well, he's 25 cents. And then the stars, I was like, hey, man, Jose Canseco was $1, Barry Bonds $1, Mark McGuire, $1.50, Darryl, and then especially the New York players, because who was good in the 80s?
Yeah.
The Mets, right? And Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden and all those guys, and you sell those guys.
What's up?
Can we pause for a
Could we
minute?
take a quick break?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
you
can can crop anything out. We can edit anything out. So you
Okay,
can.
I have to go to the bathroom.
Yep, that's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, hold that real quick.
Oh,
So anyway, I could keep talking while he's doing that. So anyway, all these different baseball cards, right? Whether it was Barry Bonds, Tony Gwynn, Mark McGuire, all the stars in the 80s, right? All right, these we're going to sell for a little bit more, 75 cents, and we just had them in a shoebox. And some of the more expensive cards, and what we saw based on the price guide, these are the more expensive cards. We would have them out and on this little like display case, like on a vertical display case, kind of leaned up on this cardboard. And we were out there, and I believe we sold $225 in that one game
wow.
in baseball cards. And my
crazy.
father was like, no way. I can't believe we sold this much in baseball cards.
Yeah.
Right? So that got him on the idea of investing in the baseball card business. He took, I believe it was $500 of his own money that he had in his savings account.
Yep.
He went directly to the manufacturers of the baseball cards, Topps, Donruss, Fleer, and soon to be Upper Deck. They were coming out with baseball cards, right?
Yep.
He went to all the manufacturers and said, I want to buy baseball cards directly from you, cut out the middleman, and I want to sell packs, boxes, and individual cards. That grew into the little protective cases, the collector's binders, the sheets so you could put your cards in, all the accessories and everything else that went into baseball card collecting. Okay? Eventually, as we continued to grow the business and we continued to sell more cards, it got into memorabilia. It got into, autograph, authentic signed memorabilia.
Yeah.
We had a Deion Sanders jersey. We had Michael Jordan basketball. We had all the big stars, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, and it extended from baseball cards to football cards, basketball cards, hockey cards. I think the only error that we ever made in that card business, and he could back me up on this, is when golf cards started to get introduced.
Golf cards.
Right? They were
didn't
like,
even know they
yeah,
had
we're going to have golf cards, right? And it was the first set of golf cards that were coming out, and I think they were called Pro Set. Is that right?
That's correct.
Pro Set golf cards. And he said, this is the next big thing. And he bought a ton of cases directly from Pro Set of these golf cards. And that was the dud.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
That was like, nobody wanted the stupid golf cards because nobody was just interested. Oh, the only people that were interested in golf was 50-year-old guys and older that they were retired and they want to play golf, and they sit there watching a golf on a Saturday or Sunday, and about through a couple hours into watching golf, they're drooling on themselves because they fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
Like the young kids that were driving their parents out to, spend money on cards weren't interested in golf cards. They were interested in Michael Jordan. They were interested in Scottie Pippen. They were interested in Shaquille O'Neal. They were interested in Wayne Gretzky. They were interested in Mario Lemieux. They were interested in Barry Bonds. They were interested in all these superstar players, right? And that's what we sold on. And when Upper Deck, I'll never forget this, Upper Deck introduced their first set of hockey cards. And he ordered, I think it was 20 cases.
I don't remember how many.
It was something, it was a large amount of cases of hockey cards from Upper Deck, because the Upper Deck baseball cards hit. The Upper Deck basketball cards, successful. The Upper Deck, he was like, this is hockey now. And this is a big hockey area, upstate New York. And we were going to go to a sports card show. I'll never forget this, in Plattsburgh, New York. Big hockey town. And we literally received, he was worried. He was like, oh, am I going to get these hockey cards? They showed up a couple of days before this card show comes around. And he's like, I got my cards. We go up there. We had a piece of crap 1990 or 80s model Dodge Caravan.
Dodge Caravan,
Right? It was that gray Dodge Caravan. We took all the back seats out, and it was basically a cargo van. We were just loaded up with all our merchandise. We drove up to Plattsburgh. We stayed at a hotel that we really couldn't afford, but we're like, we got to stay somewhere because it's a 2-day show. Normally, the things that we did was we do a show here locally, and then you go home. Right? But on this occasion, we're going to Plattsburgh. We're not going to drive all the way back down and drive all the way back up the next day. It was a 2-day show. We sold over $10,000.
All the hockey cards we sold, everything.
Wow.
That one weekend in 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
And hockey cards.
Holy crap.
And Upper Deck cards. And that was a lot of money back then in the 90s.
It's a lot of money
And
now,
we were
but-
like, holy Christ, like $10,000 in sales in one weekend. It was
Were
absolutely
you just
insane.
like, what? Like you didn't even expect that.
Right.
Yeah.
So then,
It was just the two of you when you went up there, right?
because I mean, I introduced him to the business, and I would tell him about all these things, and he would take that, and he was the money man, and I was the one with the ideas. And then he ran more with the ideas because I'm going to school, I'm not worried about business. He's doing the business. But all the time he's doing this, he's working. So the normal battle rhythm when I was a kid and a teenager, my 12, 13, 14 years old, is I go to school Monday through Friday. Saturday morning, back in the day, what do the kids do?
Saturday morning cartoon.
Thank you. Thank you. Saturday morning cartoons is what we wanted to do, right? Right?
Yep.
It was Pink Panther and GoBots and Transformers.
We didn't have cable, but we had
We had like
cartoons.
3,
on
5,
Saturday.
9.
But you had Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes.
That you would watch religiously from like 8 a.m. until noon.
Yeah.
And then once noon came around, it was like the news show. All right,
go outside.
we're done. We're going outside. Right? That wasn't me. He would work a night shift from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. all night long. He would get off the night shift, go home on Saturday morning. This is Friday night into Saturday morning. He comes home Saturday morning at 7:30 in the morning, and he wakes me up. And we go downstairs, and we load the minivan with all our merchandise.
Jeez.
We drive to a baseball card show, whether it was in Albany, whether it was in Troy, whether it was in Saratoga, the old Saratoga Mall, wherever it was. There was card shows going on all over the place at that time, at VFWs, at malls, whether it was the Crossgates Mall, at Aviation Mall up in Queensbury, all these different places. They had card shows almost every weekend. He would wake me up and we would load up the minivan. We would go to a card show. We would set up the table. This after him working all night long. And me, instead of watching Saturday morning cartoons, I'm going with him to help him sell baseball cards. Just like he helped his father in the kitchen at Wimpy's Burgers way back in the 1960s.
Right.
That's freaking awesome.
That's the continuation of this, right? So he would set up the table, and then if things were slow, he would sit in the chair, and he would literally, the only person I've ever seen in this world put his head down, fall asleep, and not fall over in the chair. He would literally nod asleep from how tired he was from
Yeah.
working all night long. And he was a supervisor back then, so it's a big responsibility. You know, sometimes things happen during the night that he has to respond to, and he has to handle that, and then he has to go and do the card show the next day. And then he would not asleep, and then I was there watching the table for him. And people would come up, hey, this box of cards is $20 for the box, but I want to buy 3 boxes. I'll give you $50 for the 3 boxes instead of 60. And I'm like, I know how much Dad paid for that. And we were like, yeah, that's fine. And I would make business decisions on my own because I knew roughly what he wanted at the end of the day, right? So I'm like, all right, fine. I'm not going to wake him up for that. But if it was like something that was iffy, I'd be like, hey, Dad. And he'd be like, yeah. It's like that, remember? This guy is saying that he wants to offer you $45 for those 3 boxes. And he would look up and he'd see the guy and he would remember the guy. Be like, yeah, this guy's a repeat customer, and I've dealt with him before. Go ahead and give it to him.
Yep.
Awesome.
I'm like, all right.
Cool.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's how we built relationships.
Yep.
Yeah.
And not only are you learning about business, but you're learning about relationships, and you know, and
That's huge.
and things that motivate you in life, and building relationships, and having customer service thing, and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's how and literally go home at 4:00. The car show would end like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
We pack everything up. We're not going to leave our merchandise there for it to be stolen. We pack everything up, hand carts and dollies right back to the minivan, load up the minivan, go back home. He eats dinner at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then he sleeps from 6 to 10
No shit.
to wake up at 10:30.
Yeah.
Go back into work for the state police at 11, work 11 to 7,
Man.
come back home at 7:30, wake me up on Sunday morning at 7:30, rinse and repeat, get in the van,
it all over
go to
again.
Stewart's and get a coffee and a donut,
Damn.
go to the card show, set back up, sell all day again until 4 p.m. Now I'm done. We go home in the minivan. Again, he eats dinner at 5, sleeps from 6 to 10, and goes back in for another night shift from 11 to 7, and then I go to school the next day.
I imagine at that point in time, there's probably many weekends where at the time you're like, you know, kind of kicking feet, like, man, this sucks. But it's like probably now it's memories you wouldn't trade for the world.
I wouldn't trade for back then, I didn't think it sucked because, like I said earlier, I hated him not being around, not being able to take me to baseball games, not being able to play Nintendo with me, not being able to spend time. It was my way to be able to spend time with him.
Yes. Yeah.
Soak in the memories.
And I was smart enough to know that, hey, I'm learning something from this.
Yeah.
So I started, and I had kind of like my little side baseball card business that I would buy packs and I would get cards. And then eventually he would give me like one little spot on the table, like, here, you could sell your cards here, and you could run your little business here, and the rest of this table is for me.
Yeah.
And I would sell cards, and I would make money, and then I would take the money, reinvest it, buy more packs, or buy cards cheap. I'd go around to other tables and be like, hey, I know I could sell that card for 50, but this guy's selling it for 30. I'll offer you 25. Sure, give me that card. And then I go sell it for 50.
Dude, baseball
Those
card.
things.
Baseball card story for you. It's the only one I have about baseball cards. I never collected them, but my older brother did. He's 5 years older. And he had some cards. Specifically, I remember he had a Carmelo Anthony rookie card. He had a Shaquille O'Neal rookie card. Had a couple Michael Jordan cards and stuff like that. And I believe the Shaquille O'Neal and I think it was Carmelo Anthony. I believe one of them was worth a couple grand. And my mom is renowned for just throwing shit away.
Yes.
And like my parents didn't have much at all either. You know, they just get by enough to not live off the system essentially.
Correct.
But they always had what they needed, always happy. But I just remember my mom after, you know, my brother moved out and then I moved out and they came back, and I remember seeing that album of cards, looking through them. Man, I bet this is worth some money. You know, it's back in the closet. And then all of a sudden one day I think I went back to go just check it out or look at it or something. My mom's, I think I might have thrown that away. I'm like, does Andrew know yet? He's gonna lose his damn mind.
Whoops.
But it is what it is. But anyway, I just wanted it to remind me of that. But
Absolutely.
Funny.
So through all that hard work,
Yeah.
he came here in 1978 with $100 in his pocket,
That's freaking awesome.
working the state police,
Yeah.
working baseball cards, renovating a house and reselling it.
Yeah.
He ended up with how many houses in Florida that you had paid for?
I had at one time 4.
No.
Four
That's
houses in Florida. Scott paid and cleared and paid for completely.
Man.
That's
you worked for every
insane.
part of
You
it.
worked
Yeah,
for
right?
everything, and
Yes.
you don't have he didn't have a big shovel to shovel with,
Yeah.
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 but he made it happen because he knows that what you make
Yeah.
can't be smaller than what you spend.
Yeah.
And he's always very, very, I'm probably a little bit more of the aggressive type.
Yeah.
And he was always, always, always more of the Dave Ramsey, very uber conservative, like, no, I'm going to save my money and spend my money
Yeah.
the old school way.
Yep.
It would drive me crazy sometimes because, like, in the case of the Victorian house,
Yeah.
I knew the house was worth a lot more. He was sick of the headaches of dealing with tenants,
Yeah.
and them calling up in the middle of the night and be like, "Oh, the toilet's broken. Oh, the hot water heater's broken. Oh,
Yeah.
this
Just
doesn't
got to
work."
get
That-
old quick.
and
Yeah.
he's getting called in the middle of the night, and I'm like, and I think at the time I was already in the Army. I was of age. Actually, I think I was in the state police. Maybe it was early on in my career. And I told him, I was like, if you don't want to deal with it, just let me manage it and I'll
Yeah.
deal with it. And he's like, nah, I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm just going to sell it. I'm like, Dad, don't sell this place.
Yeah.
And he sells it just to make a quick buck to get out of it and say, because he hates debt.
Yeah.
If there's one thing my father hates, and he'll back me up, it's debt.
Yeah, oh,
He
yeah.
hates to owe money.
I
Yep.
hate to owe money.
Same here.
Yep.
Same
Yeah.
here.
Absolutely despises it.
Yep.
Right? So he was like, well, I could get out of this debt and I can make a quick buck. I'm getting out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the decisions you made in your life that you probably look back at and you probably kick yourself.
Well, I could have made more money on the sale, yes, but
Yeah.
looking at it now, I say, hey, I made some money on it.
Yep.
That's all I care. As long as I make an honest buck,
Yeah.
that's all I
Yes.
cared.
Yep.
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 Absolutely. That's freaking sweet.
So then moving to me, then I learned from him through all those experiences and watching him through his example, the way he treated people,
Yep.
the way he carried himself.
Yep.
Those were the things that I picked up from him. And certain little quotes that he used to tell me when I was a kid, that if you want to be a part of the parade, don't wait for the parade to come and pick you up and take you along and drag you along. You have to get up off your rear end and go join the parade.
Yeah. Yep.
If you want to be part of the parade and you want to be
True.
the star of the show,
Yeah.
you're not going to do it just sitting there and watching the parade go
Yeah.
by.
Yep.
You can't wait for things to happen. You have to
You
make
can't
things
wait
happen.
for things to happen. You have exactly.
Yeah.
You have to
Put in
make
the work.
things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to put in the work.
Yep.
Yep.
And I said, that got ingrained in me.
Yeah.
And those business, things with doing the baseball cards with him, I learned those things.
Yeah.
So I had an early interest in accounting until I went to college and I hit accounting 311 and 312, intermediate accounting. And I'm like, the same classes that he took, because he had an interest in accounting. And when he took accounting 311 and 312,
Yeah.
what did you say?
This is not for me anymore.
Nope.
Is it pretty hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's intermediate accounting that's where really they're going to make or break you.
Yeah.
We're going to separate the men from the boys. And you start learning about governmentally accepted accounting principles and all these different things. And I'm just sitting there like, I don't know if I like this. And it just happened to coincide with me doing an internship. I had a neighbor across the street that worked at an accounting firm.
Okay.
I think he still lives there, here in Plum Poppy, north, or where we used to live. But he was a partner, or a high level guy at this
Yeah.
accounting firm. And I said, I'm going to go work for him because I'm interested in accounting. I'm doing I'm doing all these classes. I'm like, I'm going to go work over there. And I think I did one tax season at the accounting firm, helping out with tax preparation, organizing taxes. I don't think I saw the light of day from January to April 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a friend that did that, and she only did one season, I think.
Yeah.
And she was done.
I was
Yeah.
like, this is awful. Like,
Yeah.
you're locked up inside for hours and hours
my
and hours
gosh.
on end a day.
Yeah.
Going cross-eyed, staring at this computer screen, doing other people's taxes, organizing it. And then they call back and they're like, well, you only got me a $1,500 refund. Last year I got $3,000. And, you're trying to explain something to someone that doesn't know how it
Yeah.
really works.
I couldn't do it.
And you're like, but this year you're getting $1,500.
Yeah. Yep.
I know what you got last year, but this is what you're getting this year. Sorry, guy. It's tough to explain that to someone that's not educated in that field. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't think this is for me. Like, it was fun. I met some great people, but those are just experiences that just keep on building on the snowball
Yeah.
and building me out. I had absolutely zero interest in being a trooper
Yeah.
because I saw all the hours he worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw how much he was out of the house.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't my thing. I was like, I always thought I'm going to be in the Army. I want to be in the Army. I want to be, I want to go to war and I want to serve. And that's what I want to do. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would have gotten into the state police. It just didn't interest me.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not what I studied. It just wasn't my thing. So I went to the Army, like I said, came back, got my commission. I worked at McDonald's. I got sick of smelling like a Big Mac, just like he did. When you get a job, and he used to tell me this all the time, Louis, you don't leave a job until you're absolutely sure you have another job.
Yes.
Don't leave a job
Better job.
until
Yeah.
you have
Better.
another job, a better
Yes.
job that pays you more.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
I got tired of, I was like, I'm quitting McDonald's. I'm sick and tired of going home and smelling like a Big Mac. I smell like a Big Mac and greasy French fries. My uniform just stunk. It just seeps into your uniform. And it doesn't matter how much Tide and Febreze, I don't think Febreze existed back then, but it doesn't matter how much you wash that uniform. It always had that oily, smelly, stenchy smell to it.
Yeah.
So I got tired. I was like, I'm going to go do something that's cleaner.
Yep.
And I went to work at Trustco Bank back in, this was 99, somewhere around there. And so I worked for the bank, and I was a bank teller, and I was counting money and cashing checks and doing what bank tellers do. And I was like, well, maybe at least here there's a path, because from a bank teller, you could maybe be an assistant branch manager, then you go up to branch manager, and you can work your way up. Head teller and all those different things. And I was like, and it interested me because money's always interested me.
Yeah.
Right? And if it doesn't, you got a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's always interested me, on how money works and all that, and making money and being successful and having it, having it so you could do the things in life that you want to do.
Yeah.
So I worked at the bank, and I saw how other people were making money. And this guy had a laundromat, and this guy was a franchise owner at Dunkin' Donuts, and they were coming in with these huge deposits. I'm like, damn, but
What am I doing wrong?
what am I doing wrong? But then
They had a Dunkin'.
you look and you research, and you're like, I don't have $50,000 to invest to start a franchise, and you got to still buy the land and the location. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of risk,
Yep.
So I was like, I don't, as much as I like being in business for myself, because I enjoyed the baseball card business, I was like, I don't think that's really for me. So one day he comes up to me out of the blue. They were giving the state police exam. And he goes to me, he's like, well, they're going to give the state police exam. You're not doing anything else. Why don't you take the test? And I looked at him, I was like, I don't want to be a cop. No, I don't want to take the test. He's like, well, you're not doing anything else.
Yep.
And when he said that, I was like, well, had it right.
Got me there.
I'm at a dead end job, being a
Yeah.
bank teller at $8.50 an hour
Yeah.
after being at $7.45 an hour at the bank.
Yeah.
And doing all these different things, and I'm just like, all right, I'll take the test. It's $20. What the hell, right? Didn't study, just showed up and took this test. I think I did one study session at Loudonville, the old Troop G headquarters.
Yep.
I took the test, and I was number 6,000 on the list somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I was like, oh, okay, well, it was a pretty easy test, but I guess it wasn't that easy. I ended up getting a 94,
okay.
94 something, but
A lot of people
there's a
taking
lot of people, and since it was such an easy test, there was a lot of 99, 98, 97s,
Oh,
96s. So
Wow.
94 was number 6,000 and something. So I was like, well, these guys aren't going to call me. This is in 99.
Yeah.
Right? And I was a second lieutenant. I had just gotten promoted to first lieutenant. So I was like, no, they are not going to call me.
Yeah.
2 years later, they finally called me.
Oh my
Process.
gosh.
Off that.
Wow.
Right? And I waited 2 years, and when they finally sent me the
What
letter,
year was that?
this was in, they sent me the letter. I think I took the test in 98.
Okay.
And they sent me the letter in 2000.
2
okay.
years. That's
2 years later.
Crazy.
I took the test in 98 because I had gotten commissioned in 97. That's right. I got commissioned in 97. They took the test in 98, and 2 years later in 2000 is when, and it was perfect. It worked out perfectly because I couldn't get hired until I was 21 anyway.
Yeah.
I got that's when I got the call.
Okay.
Right? So I was like, oh, I got the call. So I was just about to turn 21, and there's so many gates and things that you have to do to become a trooper.
Yeah.
You have to take, the first thing they do is physical fitness test.
Yeah.
And you go in, and if you don't pass a physical fitness test, thanks. Sucks to suck, nerd, but if you suck and you can't pass, you can't do push-ups, sit-ups, in a 2-mile run, beat it.
Yep.
There's no questions.
Yeah.
Right? So that was the first gate. And then after you finish the physical, and I was physically fit. I was a lieutenant in the Army. I was like in shape. I was, like 80 extra pounds lighter. I could run like the wind. I was like, it was too easy. So I was like, oh, physical fitness test. There was people failing it. And then after that, they checked your eyes and your ears. Okay, you're good. Sweet. They call you back 3 weeks later, and they you take this 350 psychological question test.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like a 50 question test asked six different ways.
Yeah.
Right? Just to make sure that you're consistent with your answers. You're not
interesting.
changing
Okay.
your answers,
Yep.
and that you're still got the right frame. Because I'm like, just answer this question. Like,
Yeah.
like the test was driving me nuts. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, why you keep asking me the same question? And then after you take this test, they have you sit down with a psychologist.
Yep.
And they ask you some questions, and then you're done. You go out. They call you back another month later.
Yep.
And you sit down with an investigator, and they fill out your background check packet. And you're answering all these questions, and where did you live? List all the places where you lived, and everybody that you knew at all these different places. And I'd go back to Arizona Street in Long Island in Bayshore, where we lived, across from the Entertainment Factory, all the way to when I lived with my grandparents, and blah blah blah, all the way up through. And I'm like, Jesus, all these. They basically took this background investigation, like 6 months. And they find out things about you that you didn't even know. They talk to your school teachers, your grade school teachers, your high school teachers. I mean, they are very,
kinda
very, very
interesting.
in-depth.
Yeah.
Intense.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Very intense.
Yeah.
Much more intense than I ever would have thought.
Yeah.
So, and they call you back several different times to like follow up on stuff like, hey man, I got this, but I couldn't get a hold of this guy. Do you have any other references? I'm like, oh Jesus, all right, I think I might know somebody. Maybe he lives at this address, and they actually follow up on all of this stuff, and they actually talk to all these people. Like, hey, do you remember Louis Badillo when he was a little kid? And hey, Principal so and so, you remember when Louis Badillo when he was a kid? Oh yeah, he got in a fight once, and I got him in school suspension. But yeah, whatever the case may be, right? And as long as I was forthcoming, and I said, yeah, I was suspended when I was in grade school.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Louis being truthful, right? Eventually, all that leads to the lie detector.
Oh, you have to do that.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And I'd never been hooked up to a lie detector, right? So they ask you, bring you into the headquarters in this police station, and they ask you 4 hours worth of questions about your life. Literally what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
They asked me all these questions from the beginning of my life, from my earliest memories all the way up on through. Just an interview.
Wow.
And he's writing all this stuff down. All right, well, go ahead and have lunch, and I'll see you here at 1 o'clock. I'm like, okay. Come back at 1 o'clock. He sits me right back down in the chair. He's got a machine that looks like this thing. He hooks up this thing across my chest and these probes, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm going to ask him, just like the whole movie, Meet the Parents.
Yeah.
He's looking all this stuff up. And I'm over there chewing my gum, like, oh my God, what the hell's going on right now?
Yeah.
And he literally sat there for the next 4 hours and asked me the same questions that we went over the morning session all over again. And he calibrates this machine by saying, when the first time I hold up this card, If I ask you if it's yellow, you're going to say yes.
Okay.
And it's a yellow card. And the machine does a little something on there and he marks it. The next time I hold up this yellow card and I ask you, is this card yellow? You will say no. And is this card yellow? And I'm like, no. And your body reacts differently because
That's
your
so
body's
weird.
like, no, that's yellow, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? It's definitely yellow, and it does like something different on the piece of paper, and he marks it. So now when he's asking
That's
you the
cool.
questions all over again, anytime that machine did one certain squiggly mark, okay, he's telling the truth. Anytime it showed the other squiggly mark, this guy's full of shit.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't know that's exactly like how it worked. So that's
That's how it
interesting.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it
Right?
works,
Cool.
yes.
That's how it works. So 4 hours, I'm like, "Jeez. Are you lying about your marijuana usage? No, I have never smoked marijuana. You know, that I had a, okay, you're good. You got all these questions right on down the line.
Yeah.
Right. So then after all that, about 7 or 8 months have passed since you first took your PT test. Mm-hmm. And they're like, all right, yeah, you're doing good. You're going to come back in and you're going to take another physical fitness test. I'm like, all right. Doesn't matter if you pass all the other stuff. You fail any of one of those events. Cool story, guy.
Yeah,
We'll see you
gone.
later.
Yep.
Isn't that a waste of time for them to
You
go
would
through all
think.
that?
It's
You
not a
would
waste
think.
of time. You're trying to get the best of the best.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Like
true.
when they say the
Yeah.
Marines, you want
Right.
to be a Marine, only the best of the best.
You got to
Right.
stay
I mean, you
tip
got
top all
literally
the time.
50,
Yeah.
60,000 people back in these days were applying. Anytime they gave
Yeah.
a test for the state police, you would have all these people apply.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew through historical data, if I want a class of 200 new troopers,
Yep.
I have to pull the first 3,000
Yeah.
applicants because 2,500 people are going to shoot themselves in the foot somewhere along the process, whether
Mm-hmm.
they fail the PT test, whether they don't see right, whether they don't
Yeah.
pass a medical, they got hip replacement or a joint replacement or something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Something,
You
you
know,
know,
they naturally weed themselves out
Yep.
until they get their 250
Mm-hmm.
or 200. Let's say the office budget says, oh, we're only going to approve a class of 200.
Yep.
And they got 225 qualified candidates. Then they start going, okay, yeah, this guy, yay, this guy, yay, this guy will put on a standby list.
Yep.
This guy, yay, this guy, yeah, this guy's on a standby list. So it's still a selection process to get
Oh, yeah.
the 200. They'll have alternates that they'll backfill for the first few weeks.
Yep.
And then everyone else is like, all right, well, thanks, but no thanks. Gone. See ya. Right? So eventually, June 11th,
Yep.
23 years ago, here recently, I walked into the doors of the State Police Academy.
Yep.
Exactly 20 years to the date that he walked through the doors of the State Police Academy.
Really?
Wow.
Exactly 20 years. He went in the class of 81. I was in one of the classes in 2001.
That's freaking awesome.
That's cool. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
20 years of the day. He was already in the state police when I joined.
Yep.
He was already a zone sergeant, a supervisor up in Wilton. And I'm walking through the doors of the academy as this scrawny, I think I was 170 pounds, 6'5", 170 kid. I could run like the wind. You know, I had my knee troubles from playing sports in school. You know, I had arthroscopic knee surgery and stuff like that. But I was pretty physically fit. And,
Yeah.
you know, I wasn't always the strongest guy, but I could run.
Yep.
And I didn't like to lose. So that was my mentality. And going through the military stuff, it made the police academy very easy because like the first 8-10 weeks is like basic training. It's like boot
Yeah.
camp.
Yep.
You know, it's a lot of yelling. It's a lot of, you know, this, that, and the third, and room changes, and all these different kinds of things that they make you do. And then after that, they're like, all right, these guys really want to be here. Because some guys, after the first few days, like a buddy of ours, Fernando, he's like from New York City. The first day he shows up, and they're yelling at him, and he's like, why are you yelling at me?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Why are you yelling at me?
Yeah.
Where me, I had that military background. I was about to get promoted to captain at the time. And I was just like, I know what they're doing. This is
Yeah.
just a game.
And what
You know,
percentage
kind of
of
like
troopers
when,
are?
kind of like when you went to basic training at
Yeah.
27, you already
Yeah.
knew what was going
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
You weren't naive. You had you had your wherewithal to say, you know what, I know what's going on.
What's the
here.
percentage of troopers that are military? I mean, it's got to be like freaking damn near 50%. It seems like just about every trooper is former military.
Yeah.
There are a lot. I mean, the state police actively, and he was part of the recruiting team. They used
Yeah.
to go to military bases
Yep.
to give the New York State Police exam remotely at different military bases. So there, it is a high percentage, but I mean, we had just as many teachers,
Yeah.
former firefighters. Believe it or not, several psychologists. I remember I was surprised at how many different psychologists all of a sudden. I'm going to be a trooper because the requirements for the state police is 60 credits.
Yeah.
They don't care what those 60 credits are in. They could be in underwater basket weaving. You know, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right? It says you have to have 60 college credits.
Yeah.
I just have to be a history major and a business minor.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with law enforcement. When I showed up to the State Police Academy in 2001, I didn't even know the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Right? But they teach you. They literally take you from that ground zero level.
Yep.
And over the course of 26 weeks, it's one of the longest academies in the country.
Yeah.
6 months, they teach you everything that you need to know, at least book-wise, to be a good cop.
Yep.
And then you go into your field training phase for 3 months. And after your field training phase, you're cut off and bye birdie.
Yeah.
And it's one car, one trooper, one problem to solve.
What area were you first?
So I started out in Scroon Lake initially, up in Troop B.
Okay.
I was only there for 6 months. It was right after Trooper Larry Gleason got shot and killed up there at a domestic dispute. Another young trooper. I think he was in the class behind mine.
Yeah.
And so the station was still kind of reeling from that. It was a really tight-knit station, and we were all a bunch of young guys.
Yeah.
You know, we were all like, hey, man, let's go out there. Let's solve the world's problems. It was almost like a competition, like who could get the most arrests. and
Things
who
were a
could
lot
get the
different
most
back then.
tickets. You know, there was a different level of camaraderie back then.
Between the public
because-
and
No, more
like-
between inside the station.
Yes.
And, you know, a lot of these things now that we're getting into really leads into current policing issues and problems because it was a different level of camaraderie, a different level of understanding.
yeah.
Not the real roughneck days when he was a trooper, where if you were arrested, you went into the police station, you didn't mouth off at the station. If you mouthed off at the station, they had a special room that they dragged you into.
Did they call it the accountability room? Because there was accountability back then, and there's
No.
not anymore.
It was called
Yeah.
the Bookham room.
Room, gotcha.
It was a
Book 'em.
special room.
Gotta go book 'em, be right
where the sheetrock probably had to get replaced several times. You know what I'm saying? It was just a different mentality back then.
Yeah.
And people knew back in the 80s, like if the troopers show up, hey, man, actually, calm down, the troopers.
Yeah.
Are here.
Yeah.
You know, he'll tell you. Like the deputies would show up, and they would still be yelling, still be fighting. The second the trooper showed up, hey, calm down.
Yeah.
Troopers are here. You
I got
know,
the
these guys
perfect-
don't play. And he could tell you stories about this.
Just like he was saying, there was a deputy that had a disturbance, and he called for backup. So I was close by, and they sent me over. I get out of my car, put my Stetson down, and I start walking towards the deputy. And you could hear the people saying, "The troopers are here. The troopers are here." And all of a sudden, there was no more problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went up to the
Interesting.
deputy. You all set here? He says, "I think I am all set here now, trooper. Thank you for coming."
That's cool.
Okay.
Wow.
If you need me, call me.
Yeah.
But there was no more problem, and the people were saying, "Hey, the troopers are here. Like, don't mess around no more."
Yeah.
Wow.
We had a lot of respect,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
but we respected. We gained that respect over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and that unfortunately, through the years, it started not at that level, but it started at one level that I saw early on in my career. And as I progressed through my career, and especially in the later years, that level of respect between law enforcement and the public kept deteriorating.
Yeah.
You saw a lot more challenges from the public. a lot more of the cell phone in your face, like, oh, you can't do this.
Yeah.
A lot more of the Facebook, like how I infamously call them, the Facebook lawyers and the YouTube attorneys, that when I pull them over, they think they know how to do my job, and they try to coach me and tell me what my job is and what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. And I'm like, really, Johnny Cochran? That's not how this works.
Yeah.
So it became more challenging over the years, and more challenging to handle things the old school way.
Yeah.
Because
you're always worried about
as you
lawsuits.
you worry about lawsuits, you're worrying about being the next face on CNN, you worry about all these different things. And, you know, as the level of supervision, I would say, because with old school troopers, you had old school supervisors that had a motto back in the old day. If you get injured on the job during a fight, at a bar fight, what was the rule?
The defendant better be hurt worse than you.
That was the rule.
Yeah.
If you get hurt, the defendant better be in worse shape than what you're in. That was the rule back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay? That changed over the years.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't get that same level of support from supervisors. Because everything had to be documented. Because everything was freedom of information. And just, so you ended up getting this rift between the expectations from the public, the expectation from supervisors, and what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
So now it's gotten to a point, I feel, where, you know, I see so many of my friends that are still out there in the law enforcement community, whether they're troopers, whether they're sheriffs, whether they're local police, city police, and they're really stuck in a rock and a hard place nowadays, I feel.
I just wonder why nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, it's because there's no support for it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You know what I mean? There has
Like,
to be
where is the
some
support?
type
Why
of
not?
support from somewhere.
I truly believe there's so much more support for law enforcement out there than they want there to believe. I believe the media and everybody, like, to defund the police, I believe that's being pushed by the media. But I think the vast majority of the freaking country loves law enforcement and is very pro-military, but they want us to think everybody hates each other.
But the vast majority of the public is silent.
Yes.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the public are busy on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
Going to work, worrying about paying their bills, feeding their families. They don't have time to go out there and waste time and protest about, you know, things. I mean, ultimately, when you look at a lot of these things that people are protesting nowadays, it's an ignorance and a non-understanding of what the rules are, of what the Constitution states, of what the law states. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a lot of it. You know, like I'm trying to think of one of these scenarios back in the days that happened where, you know, it's just you got this testimony, like the Michael Brown case in Missouri, right? The district attorney's office looked at this case and they said that we can't charge, the officer didn't do anything wrong. We can't charge him. He did what he was allowed to do, right? So if they've looked at this case 7 different ways from Sunday, and they even got witnesses, you know, of all different colors in the community saying, yeah, we witnessed this kid charging at the officer. We saw this kid inside the vehicle struggling with the officer when a shot went out. Right? And when you hear all these different things, and ultimately the district attorney says, hey, we can't prosecute, the law enforcement officer was within his right, then he's within his right. You know, that's a determination that the district attorney's office made. Then you go to situations like what happened in Minnesota and Minneapolis. And even me, it disgusts me to this day. I see these things and I'm just like, no, you can't do that. What that guy did, you cannot do. Because the number one rule in a fight when you're in law enforcement is as soon as you get the handcuffs on, fight's over. That's like the ringing the bell. Because my mandate as a police officer is if I got to effect an arrest, I could use whatever force necessary to effect an arrest. Once that arrest is effected and the guy's in custody and he's got handcuffs on, the fight's over. That's it. I can't do anything else because I won the fight.
Yeah.
The guy's in handcuffs. The fight's over. Now he's at a point where he can't defend himself because his hands are behind his back.
Yeah.
Right? Fight's over. So if this individual and George Floyd, if I remember correctly, if he's complaining of chest pain and he's being belligerent and he doesn't want to get into the police car, call EMS, sit him on the side of the sidewalk, have him sit down, have them show up, they treat him, and you're done. There's no reason looking at that video for him to have him pinned down for 18 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, and putting pressure on his neck and being on top of him. There's just no reason for that because the fight's over. Why are you still using physical force on a guy that has his hands behind his back? He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He's not running from you. He's not going to fight with you.
He's not fighting either.
Right. I mean, whether he's saying he can't breathe or whatever the case may be, there's just no reason for you to be on top of him and doing anything to him because the handcuffs are on. The fight's over.
Yeah.
Right? Handcuffs are off and you haven't effected the arrest yet. You could still go through your spectrum of they call it the physical use of force spectrum. You could you start with talking, and this is the number one weapon here. We try to talk them into the handcuffs because trust me, if I could get through a 12-hour shift without getting my blood pressure up and without having to fight anybody and without having to break in a sweat, I was happy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to work, handle my calls, write my tickets, arrest someone if I had to, and if I could arrest somebody without having to get in this huge fight, awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Sometimes it doesn't always go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to, this guy's just not cooperating. This is just not happening. So now you got to up your game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Did you deal with a lot of narcotics when you were working the road or not really?
for a short period of time, because my first language was Spanish, and I don't think I was very good at it, but we did some undercover work.
Okay.
They would, I would dress up in regular clothes, and I would go downtown, and either Schenectady or Albany or Amsterdam, and you go undercover, and they go through this whole undercover school, and basically they show you the ropes, and you're, as a trooper, you're kind of like telling a temporary duty. They call it like a TDY duty, like, hey, we're going to borrow you and see how you work in an undercover environment, and if you do good work and you're pretty squared away, and you're doing these things the right, okay, we're going to keep using you, and if you're good with these investigations and you're comfortable in this role, and you could live that lifestyle, then we're going to keep doing that. And that's for certain guys.
Yeah.
I don't think it was really for me.
Okay.
I thought that's something I could have done, but it's just, I was raised so differently.
Yeah.
I was raised, even though we were poor, I was kind of sheltered.
Yeah.
I was, anytime that stuff was offered to me in school, I was just thinking about the ass kicking I was going to get from this guy. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Can you imagine look at schools, the shit that's in schools, meth is everywhere.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like, I was scared to death.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to. I never went to high school parties. I never drank. I never did anything. I was like the perfect little choir boy.
See, I was lucky. I had my sister, there. My sister's 6 years older than I am. She passed away 3 years from heroin overdose. Well, technically not from overdose, but from long-term use of the drug, caused her to have, I believe, liver failure and whatnot.
Okay.
So she essentially died, like having jaundice, was really yellow or whatever.
Okay.
But I always had this just inherent, anti-drug way about myself, just because I seen first of all, how many friends and family have I seen that got into shit?
We all know so many people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's so sad.
And it's just so crazy because my sister, when I was very young, I was 14. I remember watching her go through her getting into drugs, and saw what she went through, and then from when I was 14 to 4 years ago or so. So it's a many years of just drug use and partying, and it's just crazy the grasp that shit has on people. And it's like,
and it hits all aspects of life. It's not
getting
just
worse.
isolated to poor communities.
Yeah.
All the
There's
demographics.
affluent communities. There
So
was
many people.
family members of police officers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, their kids getting addicted and overdosing to this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sad that to see that, hey, you know, your father is a trooper, your father is in law
Yeah.
enforcement and deals with this stuff, and to see their kid turn to this, and you're just like, you know, wow, it's like it really has a further reach, because you think that, oh, this stuff is like this just limited to these poor communities.
Yeah.
They're the ones that, you know, are looking for a way out, and it's not just them. It happens
It's
at all levels.
everywhere.
And it's almost like okay, there's a massive issue with an opioid, I'm going to say epidemic in the country. It's not getting better. There's a massive meth is, at least in the area we are in,
Absolutely.
it's getting huge. But yet, let's defund the police. How does that make any sort of logical sense to anybody? Like, including the people that are living in the inner city communities that are maybe inherently, you know, I don't think they're all against law enforcement, but it seems like a lot of it seems to stem from the, you know, deep city roots. But it's almost like it's working as intended. Like, it's like, what better way to, you know, cause chaos and dependency on the government than just let's pull law enforcement, or let's put more stipulations and
Let's
tie
let
your
these
hands
people-
more.
Right, and
Yeah.
exactly.
You know.
And there's a lot of that. But I think a lot of the problems with this opioid crisis nowadays is also has roots in, there's a medication for everything.
Holy shit! Yeah, don't even get me started.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go to the doctor's office and you say, oh, I'm depressed. There's a pill for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I have anxiety. There's a pill for that. So I think in a lot of ways, the medical community and the government's getting you medicated and hooked on crap that you really don't need.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like PTSD,
Yeah.
coming to our example in the military. You come back from a war. Oh, we got a pill for that.
Yeah.
Right? What did the guys in World War II do?
Yeah.
What did the guys in Vietnam do? There was no PTSD. Talking about PTSD. Nowadays, oh, I have anxiety and bipolar disorder. I claim a disability, and I get a check from the government.
Yeah.
If you had a bipolar disorder and you had anxiety back in the 40s, it was like, cool story, bro. Go to work. And if you don't work,
Yeah.
guess what? You're not eating, and you're not living in a house, and you're on the streets kicking cardboard. You know what I mean? It's like, where are we getting at in society nowadays? And it's kind of like, it's almost like we're enabling this bad behavior.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like, we're okay.
Well, because people
you're
want an easy
sad.
fix.
Exactly.
They don't want to work to help
No work.
themselves or
Exactly. They
Right.
don't want to have to go through the hard work.
Yeah.
Dude.
And they don't want to have to go through the struggle of doing the hard right.
Yeah.
They take the easy wrong.
I took a trip. I think it was like the first video I've ever posted on YouTube, and I talked about going to the walk-in mental health clinic, because I mean, going through hell last year. You know, I talk about this on other podcasts and what I feel like a broken record kind of, but you know, I thought it was so cool hearing a psychiatrist. You know, and I've always been so anti-drugs and pills and all that shit. And the last thing I've ever wanted was antidepressants. And talking to a psychiatrist and having a professional evaluate me and say, hey, I don't think you need anything. I think you're handling everything incredibly well. You're just going through an incredibly stressful situation.
Right.
And hearing that professional not try to push pills on me, like it just, you know, I was shocked. And that's probably really rare nowadays, because there's
I
no
was
surprised,
financial incentive for anybody if they're
There
not pushing
isn't.
pills.
There's no
Yeah.
financial incentive for the pharmaceutical companies. There's no financial incentive for the doctor, because someone's getting. You got to follow the money trail. They always say, "Where's the money trail? Where's that going to?"
Yeah.
To find out what's the real reason for this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, so we did the 21 years in the state police, and it was a good, you know, just like he had a good career. You know, I look back at it. It was probably a little bit more of a roller coaster than what he went through. I had my early years where I was like, wow, this is great. You know, we're arresting people, we're solving the problems, we're taking drugs off the streets. This is fun. And then as I got later on in my career, I was like, you know, I became a little more jaded when you see things, you know, you talk about the problems with the police and the community, but there's also problems within law enforcement that have also broken down the camaraderie of what the job really used to be. You know, there's just that, you know, I have a problem with, you know, and I could say this now, you know, that I'm not on the job anymore, but, you know, I have a problem with getting a letter of accommodation for writing 50 tickets.
Yeah.
But if I arrest 50 people, I never hear anything about it. And I would think to myself in the police car, I was like, geez, I just made all these arrests. I solved this great burglary case. I don't hear anything about it. I don't get a letter of accommodation, nothing added to my record, nothing. Never hear anything about it. Why is it that I don't get a letter of accommodation for arresting 50 people, but I get a letter of accommodation for writing 50 tickets?
Yeah, explain that, because that doesn't make sense.
Goes back to financial incentive, I'd assume.
You're getting close, right? Follow the money. If I arrest 50 people, that costs the state money because they got to house them, they got to feed them, they got to provide a public defender. Because most of these people that you're arresting, it's like trying to squeeze blood from a rock. It's not they are financially well off, they can get their own attorney. Most of them get the public defender.
Yeah.
Right? And that backs up the court system, and it costs money to run courts and all this stuff. Right? But by writing 50 tickets, that is the easiest way for the state government to get into your pocket without having to do anything.
Yeah.
Because what do people do? They get a ticket, I'm going to plead not guilty, and I'm going to go to court, and I'm going to try to get this ticket reduced to a non-moving violation, and I'm happy it got reduced to a non-moving violation, and I'm not getting points on my license. And if the court wants $200 out of me, fine, just don't give me any points. So my insurance doesn't go up.
Got you by the balls.
And you just gave $200 to your state, town, local government that is divvied up 3, 4, 5 different ways for them to use on whatever they want to do.
It's like you think you're winning, not getting the points on your
The same thing with driving while intoxicated. You know, and this is, at least for me, this is Lou Badillo's opinion. Why is it that I get a letter of accommodation for 3 DWI arrests a month? Do they really care that, oh yeah, the streets are safer, we got less drunks on the streets, and you know, people are driving safer.
The amount of money made off of DWIs.
It's at least $10,000 between local fines, attorneys, DMV fees, your license being suspended, all these different things. That all goes where eventually?
You know, because I don't know if I mentioned it since we turned on the cameras or not, but I worked a couple of years in law enforcement as well. And it's just crazy because it's like if you compared a DWI to, say, like a domestic dispute with children that are in the household that it's not a good situation, like you can tear apart that DWI, yet you get called to this domestic and there's kids in a household that don't belong there, and like there's nothing that you can do about it. You know, and a lot of times, not always, but I don't know.
Can affect an arrest, but you don't get that financial gain and grasp, because ultimately when I suspend your license and you got to go to work, you're going to pay the fine.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're going to get stopped again. And next time you get stopped, oh, now your license is suspended. There's another charge. There's another ticket. There's another fine. And it just keeps snowballing on top of itself. So people are going to pay. And when they pay, in essence, it's a tax. And that's the way I always saw it. That's why I absolutely despise and hated tickets. You know, I would stop good people on the road all the time, hardworking people going to work. You know, I had to take a phone call. Forgot to put on my seatbelt. I was going a little fast. And as long as they were honest with me and they didn't give me any crap, and I saw that they were just a hardworking individual, I had a real hard time going back to my car and saying, you know what, I'm going to write this person a ticket.
That would be
But then you had a lot of people that just talk themselves into a ticket.
You know, within
I get that a lot.
You've seen it in your career.
I got the perfect example.
Go ahead.
I was a supervisor on my way to Clifton Park from Wilton, or from Queensbury, on the way to Clifton Park, and I'm in an unmarked car, CI car, concealed identity. I have a little Kojak red light, and that's about it, and the lights flash a little bit. This guy comes off exit 13, bat out of hell, and goes into the middle lane doing about 85, 90 miles an hour. I said, look at this guy here. So I'm behind him, and now I get behind him because I was moving right along also. So I get behind him, he looks up, and he keeps going at the speed he was going. So now I start to get a upset a little bit. So I get next to him, and I put on my Kojak light. He looks over. He keeps going. Doesn't slow down or anything. Now I'm really getting mad. I was just going to tell him, hey, just slow down. Now we're talking something more than that.
Yeah.
More than a little chat. I get behind him. I have the lights and siren with the Kojak and everything. He doesn't want to go on, doesn't want to pull over. He looks up, and I don't know why all of a sudden he decides to pull over. I get out of my car, nice and easy, start approaching the car. First thing out of his mouth was, "You can't stop me." And so, yes, I can, and I'm going to give you a ticket, too. License and registration, went to the car and wrote him the ticket for 90 miles an hour. Where I was just going to tell him, hey, slow down.
Yeah. Yeah. They say normally, what is it? Within 3 seconds, someone rolling down the window, you know if you're going to write them or not. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since you were in law enforcement,
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah.
And I had another example, right? I used to, and the state police was big on don't write roadside reductions. You know, write what you see. If this guy did this, write him for this.
Yeah.
Right. But me, I was like, no. If I stop you for speeding and you were a decent guy, but I needed a ticket, I might write you for that plate frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here you go. And I'm not going to write you the speeding ticket, but you've got a license plate frame on the back of your car, and that's illegal. You can't conceal any portion of your license plate.
Yeah.
Here's a ticket for this. It's a non-moving violation. Just a slap on the wrist. You good with this? All right, cool.
Yeah.
See ya. And they'll plead guilty to that. And hey, no points. I'm good to go. And I got my ticket, and he was happy because he got off with the speed, and we're good to go, right? But this one day, I stopped this kid. I'm in the left lane. I think I had to cruise at 88, between 80 and 85. I'm just cruising down the left lane, nice summer day. I'm approaching exit 12 here in Malta. I was working in the Malta station. This kid blows by me in the right lane, going on the exit ramp, and he's getting off on the exit ramp at 12. And I'm in a marked car, not in concealed identity car. I'm in a marked car, and this kid blows by me in the right lane and goes up the exit ramp, and I'm like, what? I look behind me. There's nobody else coming. I'm like, all right, I can make it across all these lanes of traffic. I swing in behind him and I stop him. I walk up to the car. License and registration. Hey, what's going on? Young kid. I think he was 17 or 18 years old, right? So, talking to the kid, and I'm looking at the car. You still live at this address? No, I changed my address. I live here now. And I see that the address on his registration and the address on his license are different. And you got to change your address within 10 days.
Yeah.
This way, because DMV mail doesn't get forwarded.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't change your address and DMV has to send you a suspension notice or something, then you don't get that suspension notice.
Yeah.
Right? So it's 10 days is the rule. You have to change the address on your license and registration.
Yeah.
Both his license and registration had old addresses. I look at the front of the car. He's got no front plate. He's got an expired inspection sticker. He's speeding. He's failure to signal. I just keep observing more and more and more violations in this car, and I'm just like, but the kid's being respectful. He's being decent, and I'm like, I got like 7 different charges here. But you know what? I'm going to go back to the car and run him. And I see he's got a clean record. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to bust this kid's stones too much because he's been good. He hasn't given me a problem. So I'm going to write him for the lowest of everything I observed. Failure to change address on a license within 10 days. I write it up. I don't even remember the section. And I go up there. Here's your ticket, returnable to the town of Malta Court, yada, 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 yada. And the kid takes the ticket with an attitude, rips it out of my hand, holds it up like this with 2 fingers, and tosses it up in the air like this into the passenger seat. And he says, well, I'll get that dismissed.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, really? Your license and registration back. I go back to the car, and I wrote him for the inspection, the no front plate, the plate frame, the failure to change address on the registration, the speed, and the failure to signal. All those different things.
Yeah.
I write him for all those different tickets. I go back up to the car. I explain every single ticket. They're still returnable to the town of Malta Court on the same date. And I tell him, try to get these dismissed.
Good.
All I want to hear is thank you, Trooper.
Yeah.
I apologize, Trooper. Have a nice day. That's all I want to hear.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear attitude.
You know,
Kind of like the judge in My Cousin Vinny when he tells Cousin Vinny, like, I don't want to hear attitude. I don't even want to hear you clear your throat. You know, I just want you to say thank you, have a nice day, and go on about your business. I apologize, whatever. And if you were forthcoming and outright right from the very beginning, you said, oh, I'm sorry, Trooper, and you were remorseful and everything, 9 times out of 10, I'd let you people go.
Yeah.
I hated writing tickets.
Yeah.
And anybody that worked with me in my career will tell you, Louis was never a big ticket writer.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't a fan of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, conversely, because I wasn't a big ticket writer, I also wasn't a big person on the list to get promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it always amazed me in the state police how the people that get promoted and moved up are the ones that write the most tickets.
Yeah.
Not the ones that make the most arrests.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. Like, this guy's an investigator and all he ever does is write tickets. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how is that
backwards?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how does writing tickets equate a good investigator and this guy gets promoted to investigator? You know, it never made any sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, as to the process behind the promotions inside the agency. And those things, you know, wore on me over the years, where I eventually said, after 10 years of doing the job, I was like, I don't think I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Because the state police, and he'll tell you, used to be a job that you joined it and you were there for 35 years. Guys working the road. I mean, absolute legends that I used to work with that are no longer with us.
Yep.
They worked the road their entire career and they loved it.
Yeah.
Because there was a sense of camaraderie, a sense of trust between the people on the road and leadership, between the people on the road and the general public. It was just different.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing things in the state police and in other agencies. And this isn't just in the state police. This is multiple, every law enforcement agency across the country.
Yeah.
People leaving, they're doing 20 years and others are gone. Bye.
If they stay that long.
Yeah.
Buy. Oh, I get 3 years of military buyback. I'm going to do my 17 years. I get 3 years credit for military, and I'm gone.
Yeah.
And that never used to be the case.
That's sad.
And that's why you're looking at 50% staffing levels for police officers in these different agencies, because the guys, it's not the same job.
Yeah.
It's not what it used to be. And you have to worry about what I say in public to somebody, how is that going to be perceived? How is it going to look on camera?
Yeah.
How is the station supervisor going to react to this? Is his boss going to react favorably or unfavorably to this? Is the politician going to smoke me and throw me under the bus because, you know, he doesn't agree, even though what I did is completely right and within the rules? But is the politician going to say, oh, I believe that Cambridge police officer acted stupidly? Where we've heard that before. It started with that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
You know,
who wants
like
to deal with all that, though?
you know what I
so
mean?
much. Yeah.
It starts, the attitude comes from the top. And, and, you know, and just like in the military, whoever's in charge of the unit, they set that attitude.
Yeah,
They set
absolutely.
that expectation, right? And they set that culture in the unit. And if, you know, that changes at the upper levels, that filters down, and the morale going down the line, just, it decreases, it goes down, it dies.
Yeah.
You know, and I got to the point in my career where I was just like, I'm literally doing this and I'm trying to do the best job that I can just so I could get the hell out of this. Because, you know, for 17 years, I was trying to piss on City Hall steps and do things my way and say, I don't agree with this and I don't agree with this, and, you know, this is stupid. And
So how did you get into the state police aviation portion of it?
well,
From there?
that's
Sorry.
how, 17 years.
Okay.
I was literally trying to fight the system and saying, trying to do things the old school way. And it really wasn't working in my favor.
Yeah.
But I knew I needed to get out and not do this specific job anymore. There's multiple different jobs in the state police. That's one of the nice things about the state police is it offers various different opportunities.
Yeah.
And he knows ever since I was a little kid, I was interested in being a pilot.
Yep.
I wanted to be a pilot. I loved going to the airport. You could take me to the airport. I'd sit there for hours watching planes take off and land. It just amazes me how the physics of getting an airplane in the air.
My son.
I was thinking
Right?
that, yeah.
The
Loves
physics,
airplanes.
the absolute physics of that is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
How people, echelons smarter than me, are able to do these things and design these airplanes and design these engines and produce this power to get this huge 200,000
Yeah.
pound object in the air
I think
and
about
get
that all
you
the
to
time.
someplace so quick
Yeah.
in 3 hours that, you know, I'm in New York freezing my ass off 1 minute and I'm in Florida the next and it's 90 degrees, right? And I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah, my brain can't like think about something so big and heavy being
Right.
up there. Just, you know,
Exactly.
it's just insane.
So that always mesmerized me, and I always wanted to do that, but our financial situation didn't allow for that.
Yeah.
It was one of those far off pipe dreams
Yep.
that I said, I'm never going to get there,
Yeah.
right? But I became a cop, and I had some disposable income. So I said, you know what? I've always wanted to be a pilot and have and get a pilot's license.
Yeah.
So I spent, I believe it was $4,000 or $4,500 back then to get my private pilot license,
Yeah.
right? And I said, all right, well, I got my private pilot license, and I'm just going to bomb around and use my privileges and take friends up and fly to different places and eat hamburgers that are costing me $100 because all the fuel and the rental and everything. I mean, I could have gone to McDonald's and spent, $3.20 first window on a Valley meal right here.
exactly.
I could have gotten the same thing, but I wanted the experience and I wanted the time in my logbook. And I said, if I'm going to spend this money, the more boxes I could fill in on this logbook, right, the better. Like I could fill in cross country, PIC, nighttime, IFI. If I could fill all these different boxes in, then I'm getting more bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Right? So it just started off as a hobby. A hobby that was like, everyone has to have something. So for some people it's drugs. For me it was flying. That was my that was my habit. That was my bad habit. It was a very expensive habit.
Yeah.
But I kept on building up and getting time and every single time that they would say, oh, we're looking for pilots to join the state police aviation unit. Well, that sounds great. I'd apply. Oh, you don't have enough time. And I'd apply it again the next time around. You don't have a helicopter rating. And I'd apply again. Oh, well, yeah, you still don't have a helicopter rating. You still don't have enough time. And I'd keep on flying little by little, little by little, little by little. And this is through the course of a divorce. This is through the course of deploying to Iraq for 20 months, where I didn't fly at all for 20 months, came back, got right back into it. All these different things that happen through life. And I'm just little by little, little by little, little by little. And I was just taking it as a hobby until I got to that 10-year point. I was like, I don't think I want to do this. Let me take my training a little more seriously. And I invested some more money to get my instrument rating, my commercial license. Eventually, I got sick and tired of hearing, you don't have a helicopter rating. So I looked at this guy over here, and I told him, I was like, Dad, I hate this. I was going through a hard period of time. The people that worked with me know I was going through a very, very hard period of time on the job. I was at the peak. I'm at the top of the mountain 10 years. I got 10 years to go. I'm like, I don't think I could do 10 more years on the road. Right? I was like, I don't think I could do this job for another 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to go crazy. Like, I'm sick of getting called to domestics at 2 a.m, dealing with the same people over and over and over again. And they break up, and 2 weeks later, they're back together and they're fighting again. And they're drunk, and alcohol is always involved. And it always seemed to be when you put on a fresh uniform. I got a fresh uniform, it's nice and clean, all my pins, it's nice and tight, and yeah, man, I look good. And you got to go to a domestic at such and such mobile home park, and I'm like, shit. And you walk in, and it's cat piss, drunken, cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I got to do a report. Yada, 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 yada. Done with this report. You leave an hour later, and the stench just sticks to your uniform, and it doesn't go off.
Just like McDonald's.
Just like McDonald's. Just like McDonald's.
Deja vu.
Just like when I was sick and tired of smelling like a Big Mac. Well, I was sick and tired of smelling like a trailer park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm done with this. This is I can't do this. You're just dealing with the same people over and over. We called them the usual suspects.
Yeah.
Right? It always seemed like it was the same people. There's a reason people have 10-page rap sheets. They're always getting in trouble. It's always the same people.
It's always the same people.
Right?
Yeah.
So I got to do this flight stuff. So I looked at him. I was like, I need your help.
Yeah.
I'm broke. My ex-wife put me through hell, and we all got our ex-wife stories.
Yeah.
And she, is leeching me for money, and I don't have any extra money for flying, and I need to get into the aviation unit. I need your help.
Yeah.
And he was there for me. And he gave me, I believe that it was $25,000.
Jeez.
He's like, here's $25,000. Go get your helicopter rating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I went and I got my helicopter rating.
That's freaking
The
awesome.
first 10 hours were the most frustrating 10 hours in aviation in my entire life.
Yeah.
I said to myself, Jesus Christ, I can't control this damn thing. I was like, it's like trying to balance a dinner plate on a pin. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And after 10 hours of flying, and I spent $5,500 in 10 hours, I felt like I had learned nothing.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God. I just spent, I literally could have flown 100 hours in an airplane, but I flew 10 hours in a helicopter, and I felt like I learned nothing.
Oh, that's crazy.
I was like, wow. Then I said, all right, Louis, man up.
Got to keep going.
Got to keep going. At some point, you're going to break through. At some point, this is going to click. And I kept training. I eventually get my private helicopter license. And I go apply again. Well, yeah, you got a helicopter license, but you don't have a commercial helicopter license.
Oh my gosh.
It's like they keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah.
Like, what do they expect? Like, what do they want?
Right. I'm literally like, well, tell me what it is that you want, and I'll do it to get to where this is. Because I don't want to fight, and I don't want to have to deal with this crap anymore.
Yeah.
I just want to fly. Right? So eventually, 2017 rolls around. And I've kind of admitted a lot of military stuff in this long story, but 2017 rolls around. Hurricane Maria hits Puerto Rico, right? And they wanted this. It was the first time that the New York State Police had been activated to go somewhere other than New York State to assist.
Oh, I didn't know it's a thing.
Yeah, it's not a thing. It wasn't a thing up to that point, right? But it was a thing. They were like saying, hey, let's go to Puerto Rico. They need help. The police officers a lot of them were stuck because they were flooded into their police stations. They couldn't leave. They needed extra law enforcement assistance to assist in the recovery efforts on the island. So I went down there for 2 different trips. I think it was a total of 3 or 4 weeks. And I made this ridiculous amount of overtime in those 3 or 4 weeks. That was all FEMA reimbursed, right? And I find myself with all this money, and I had promised my wife my current wife, I was like, hey, baby, I'm going to go do this overtime. When I get back, we'll remodel the kitchen, right? That was the plan. I'm going to remodel the kitchen. Just as I'm over there, they announce, hey, we're hiring for the aviation unit where the application window is open again. And I'm like, no way. So I get this big check for however many thousands of dollars it was. And I'm like, I could remodel the kitchen, or I could go get this commercial helicopter license.
Yeah.
And finally get to where I want to go.
Yeah.
So I sat down with her and I talked to her. Right? And I was like, baby, if I spend this money and I get my commercial license, I got what I need to get in there. They can't tell me no now. I have an airplane license. I got a helicopter license. If they tell me no now, something's fucking up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, for real.
Like,
Yeah.
what else? I can't do cartwheels
There's
for
nothing
you.
else.
There's nothing else. Like, I literally have everything you could possibly want.
Yeah.
But the state police is a little weird like that. I'm a drill sergeant in the Army.
Yeah.
Don't you think when I applied for the State Police Academy to be an instructor at the State Police Academy, that you would want someone with my qualifications as a drill instructor in the Army to teach, mentor, and motivate the next generation of troopers coming up? Oh, no. You could keep working on the road. And all my applications to go to the police academy to be an instructor, just like he was, got turned down. Did that make any sense?
No.
But that's the state police.
Yeah.
So Now to the aviation thing. I go, I got to get my commercial license. I got to get this done. This is going to set me up for whatever comes next in life. I didn't know that I was going to end up in the airlines.
Yeah.
Had no idea. That was such a far-fetched, it was almost like me being a kid thinking about flying airplanes.
Yeah.
We were poor, we didn't have money. You know, my goal was, hey, I'm going to get into the aviation unit and I'm going to be here for 30, 40 years until I hit age 60 and I'm gone. And they kick me the hell out of here because all I wanted to do was fly, right? And that's what I was going to get the opportunity to do. So I spent the money. My wife agreed. Bless her heart. She agreed. And she was like, go ahead, you earned your money.
Aww.
Isn't it nice having a wife that supports you?
What, are you trying to say something over here?
No. She
trying to get killed?
She really does. She supports everything. Everything I come up with, she supports me.
Yeah.
And
That's fantastic.
I am so fortunate.
Yeah, and, you know, and especially when you look at your past relationships and you're like, I can't believe I put up with her.
Yeah.
And now I got this, you know what I mean? You're like, all right, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she said, no, don't worry about me. The kitchen's fine. The kitchen works. You know, I'll keep dealing with this. Go spend the money and get what you need so you could be happy. Because she just wanted to be happy. And she knew I was going to work and I was stressed. And I hated it.
Yeah.
So I went and did it. I got my commercial license. I interview. I did my flight test, yada, yada, yada. And they said, okay, well, you'll hear from us. Eventually, 2 weeks later, I get the thanks but no thanks letter.
Don't say that.
Right?
He did.
I got the thanks but no thanks letter. And I was absolutely, I'm not a person that gets emotional or cries because of all my experiences in combat and how hardened we become and how cold we've become because of our military experiences and the things that you see as a police officer, accidents. You just become hardened, you become cold, right? I cried.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was like, I failed my wife.
Yeah.
Aw.
I could have gotten her a new kitchen. It doesn't matter what I do for these people and how much I prove to these people that I'm worthy of this position.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get this position.
Yeah.
And I spent all this money and I'm never going to fly a helicopter ever again.
Yeah.
I wasted this money for I could have spent this money on getting more airplane time.
Yeah.
Much, much more airplane time. Like 5 times more. Right? And I literally just robbed my wife of a new kitchen.
Oh, man.
And all this time that I worked in Puerto Rico for nothing. Because if I don't go into the when am I going to fly a helicopter? I don't have $550 an hour to go shell out and go rent a helicopter and fly.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I'm going to have like millions of dollars for this stuff like that. I don't have that.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, this is unreal. So after my initial emotional phase, this is one of those life learning lessons for people that view your show as say, I mean, like you look at society nowadays, they come up to a wall, and they come up to adversity and they throw their hands up
Yeah.
and they give up
Yep.
and they quit so easily, right? You see it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And I said, okay, I had my grieving period. I'm pissed now. I'm going to go right to the horse's mouth. I'm going to go right down there and I'm going to ask the hard questions.
Why?
So I went right down there and I said, listen, I understand that I don't have the qualifications and I don't have the time. You know, you go in, you got to kind of go in with your hat in hand, not go in there arrogant.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
hey, what the
yeah.
hell?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Respectful.
You go down there respectful. I'm like, listen, I understand that I don't meet your qualifications and I didn't apparently do well enough on the flight exam and this, that, and the third to be here, but I need you to explain to me what is it that I need to do to be in your shoes. I'm here now. I want to be where you be, where you are right now.
Yeah.
What do I need to do to get to where you are?
Yeah.
Because I've done all of these things. I've passed these tests. I'm on the sergeant's list. I've got all my qualifications. I've got all my ratings. What else do I need to do to get in your shoes? And he's like, oh, you got to keep flying. You got to go. He goes and they explain it.
Yep.
Okay. Do you know of anyone, since you have all these connections and you know people in the aviation community, some people I may not, do you know of anyone that could offer me a job or an opportunity on the side where I could fly on the side and gain more hours so I don't have to spend more money out of my own pocket?
Yeah.
Right? You tackle the problem head on and you look for solutions.
Yeah.
The military way isn't just say, oh, well, this sucks and I guess we are going to fail our mission and we're not.
Yeah.
The Army isn't fail the mission.
You can't give up. No.
You can't give up.
No. The only way
You can
to
never
fail is
quit.
to quit. The
Correct.
only way to fail is to quit.
The only way to fail is to quit. And the only person that's stopping you from being successful
Is
in
you.
life is a person staring back at you in the mirror.
Yeah.
So if you look in the mirror and you're like, all right, I'm give up,
Yeah.
then guess what? You're not going to get what you want.
Yeah.
You're not going to get to what you want to do in life if you just say, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm giving up. I'm not. Obviously, I've tried 5 times. I've tried 6 times. I've tried 7 times. They keep telling me no, 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 no. You know, I give up. I am the type of person that doesn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
I'm stubborn. He knows I'm stubborn. I'm very hard-headed.
Yeah.
I am in your face. I tell you what I think and what I feel.
Same here.
Because if I tell you the brutal, honest truth from my perspective, I could go to sleep at night with myself. If I stay with my 10 cents in my pocket and I don't tell you what I really think, I'm going to go wake up the next day and I'm going to regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to regret not having that meeting with that guy that told me no and saying, why did you say no? And what can I do for you to say yes?
It's funny. We have that in common. That's for
Yeah,
sure. I
definitely.
I go out of my way to get
Yeah.
answers.
Right.
And when
Yep.
when I feel like there's anything, especially in this last year and a half, when I feel like there's things that are just not okay, you know,
You go above and beyond,
to
and most
whoever
people
can answer my question.
Yeah.
And if they don't answer my question, I continue. I carry on. I go to the next person.
Yep.
You know, and I just, you know, and that's part of the reason why I'm sitting here
because
talking
if
to you.
give up,
Yeah.
you're just done. Yeah, I mean, there's nowhere. If you just accept your life for what it is and your situation for what it is, and oh, well, I guess this is what my lot in life is, then that's what you're going to end up doing. And then you're not going to
Yes.
succeed and you're not going to progress and you're not going to move forward. And guess
Yeah.
what? It's not just about you.
Yeah.
It's about the people behind you.
Yeah.
All right? For me specifically, it's for my family. The higher he reached, the further I could reach.
Yeah.
The further I reach, the further my kids in the future could reach and get up higher in that ladder of society. So
Yeah.
where they don't have to worry about, oh, do I have enough money to pay for flight training?
Yep.
Do I have enough money for this? Do I have enough? No, now it's not an issue. You just go and you do it,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like what, I don't know if you saw what Tom Brady said recently in his Hall of Fame induction speech.
No.
For the New England Patriots. I'm not a big Tom Brady fan because I don't like the Patriots. I'm always a Giants fan, but that's another thing. But, you know, he said in his Hall of Fame induction speech, and if you haven't seen it, you know, pull it up on YouTube. It's
Really good.
amazing. You know, he says in order to be successful in life, you have to do the things that other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah. You want to be the 5%, you got to do the 5%. You got to do what the 5% are willing to put
You got to be willing
Yes.
to wake up early.
Yeah.
Work harder than the other guy. You know, life's about competition, and society and teachers and the media, they try to say, oh, no, competition, that's unfair, you know.
I can't
be-
don't
everyone
even,
gets a
I
trophy,
can't.
you know.
Yeah.
No. Life is about competition.
Yeah. It is.
Everyone's trying to compete for that piece of the pie.
Yep.
And you got to be the person that has to work more than the other guy that's trying to get that same piece of pie.
Yeah.
You got to be able to work more. You got to be able to do more. You got to be able to reach more. You got to be able to do all these different things,
Yeah.
right? So that, you know what, I got there because of my hard work. And when you
Yeah.
finally get there, you're like, I did it.
Yeah.
And you just feel such an enormous sense of pride and satisfaction because you're like, I did it. I got there.
Yeah.
What people have been telling me my entire life that, oh, you're never going to do this.
Yeah.
You're never going to be a professional pilot. You're never going to be in the aviation. You're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. I say, no, watch. You tell me I can't do something, and I'm going to show you that I can.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the Netflix special on Michael Jordan, he is really big on that.
Yeah.
He was told, oh, you're never going to be a good basketball player. He had all the abilities and all the skills and everything. He was turned down basketball in high school. He didn't make the team, pissed him off, and he said, watch me. Became the greatest basketball player in
I love
NBA
that.
history.
That's
because
awesome.
he was willing to work and put in the work
Yeah.
and work harder than anyone else.
Yeah.
No one was going to outwork him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tom Brady said, no one's going to outwork me.
Yep.
He showed up as a 199th pick in the NFL draft, skinny, scrawny kid that never even started in college. He was never the starting quarterback at Michigan and ends up being the greatest quarterback in NFL history. Things like that don't happen
Yeah.
by accident.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you have to have the attitude that I'm going to go do it. I'm going to get it done because no one's going to stop me. The only person that's going to stop me
Is yourself.
is me,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So back to the aviation thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was told no,
Yeah.
and I was pissed.
Yeah.
I happened to be going to drill weekend with you. I believe you were in the car. If you were in the car driving to drill weekend to Fort Devens that weekend, and you were in the other car.
Okay.
Okay, because I remember Greigel was definitely in the car with me.
Yeah.
Because I was pumped. I'm driving to Fort Devens for one of those 4-day drill weekends that we do, right?
Yeah.
And we're driving out there, and I'm thinking, I'm in the front seat in the passenger side, and I'm like, oh man, what else do I got to do? I'm like thinking about jobs. I'm thinking about different things that I could do to get to my goal of being a pilot, being a professional pilot, not just flying for myself, being a professional pilot. And I get this call out of the blue, and I see it's the chief pilot for the aviation unit
Okay.
and at the state police. The guy that I went to, that, I don't know if he was the one that told me, no, I just got a general memo that said thanks, but no thanks. But I went up to him and I spoke with him in the hangar and I said, what do I need to do to get to where you are? And he laid it out for me and then he explained it to me, right? And I get a call from him. It's strange how things work in life.
It
Like
is
sometimes,
very strange.
every now and then, you need
Yep.
a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need something, you know.
Yeah, I know that.
You work, you struggle, and every now and then you're like, just give me a break.
Yeah.
Something.
Just give me something. Give me a light. Give me a wedge. Give me some kind of opportunity.
A
Yeah.
little poke. Something.
Right? Something. Right?
Yeah.
And he calls me and he says, we were going to take 3 people. We still need to take 3 people. I'm like, yeah, I know. You told me I was number 4. Well, number 3 backed out. And we haven't published a File 14 yet, which is the official document in the state police that promotes you from or transfers you from one position to another. So since number 3 backed out, you're number 4. We're offering you a position in the aviation
That
unit.
gives you chills almost,
And I was like, wow, after 17 years of working on the road, busting my ass off, getting my ratings, getting my time, little by little by little by little, the typical way of getting to being an airline pilot is you start off as an instructor, you get all your ratings up to an instructor, you have about 250 to 300 hours total time, and then you flight instruct
Yeah.
for the next 12 to 13 to 1400 hours until you have the minimum hours required to
Yep.
join a small airline or regional airline flying small planes. Matt, I had 600 hours in my logbook when they called. Not 1 hour of instruction. That's 600 hours that I flew on my own over the course of 17 years. 600 hours at roughly 100. If you cost average it with the helicopter and airplane time, probably $150 an hour.
Wow.
Do the math.
Yeah.
That's what I roughly spent over the course of 17 years for them to finally call me. And that and his $25,000 investment for them to finally call me and said, you're in the unit.
That's freaking awesome.
Please
man.
tell me you called your wife immediately.
Absolutely. As soon as I
Yeah.
got off the phone with him, the very
me
first
too.
call.
And you
The
too.
very
Yeah.
first call was to my wife because she knows how awful I felt about her kitchen and not,
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
not having her kitchen.
Yeah.
And the first person I cried about to when I found out no was her,
Yeah.
right? And the second person I called was him.
Yeah.
Aw.
right? Because I was like, I finally made it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And for the last
dad.
4 years of my aviation career at the state police, I flew helicopters, I flew airplanes, I flew 6 different airframes in the state police aviation unit.
Yeah.
I got to fly the governor of New York.
Yeah.
All during COVID, we were flying Cuomo all over the place. And it was an experience,
I
Like
bet.
COVID happened and the world shut down, I was working more than ever.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to go here, he wanted to go here, he wanted to do his COVID news conferences. And on top of that, there were still all the other missions going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There still needed fish to be stocked, and there were still criminals doing their thing, and you needed to go chase them in the helicopter. And there were still all these different things going on that needed to happen on top of flying the governor around the state. And it was a
Yeah.
blast. I learned from some amazing professionals in that unit over the course of 4 years.
Yeah.
Some people that I am indebted to for the rest of my life for the things that they taught me, that I carried through with me to this day to the airlines.
Yeah.
Because ultimately in 2022, I said, my wife came to me and she's like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of living in New York. I'm tired of the cold. I'm tired of the taxes. I'm tired of the COVID restrictions. I'm tired of all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, and I want to get out of here. I want to leave New York. I'm done with this place. She likes to ride motorcycles and she likes warm weather. And I mean, New York.
She's got an
is-
Indian.
Yeah,
She's an Indian?
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, so yeah, there you go.
We have an Indian too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's tired of all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great, but baby, I'm making pretty good money right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to leave a job
Mm-hmm.
until I'm sure I have something else that's better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I still at this point wasn't thinking airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, I'm looking at my wife like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Like, we're comfortable.
Yeah.
Just finally did it.
We're
Yeah, right.
here. I'm
Yeah.
at the aviation. I reached my goal,
Yep.
and I could finally sit back and be like, I could relax a little bit. I'm flying. I'm building up my time. I'm building up my experience. I'm learning from professionals. So one thing about the aviation and the state police that I could say is that it's a wide array of a bracket. We got Marine pilots. We got former Army pilots. We got former Navy pilots.
Yep.
We got former airline pilots that said, you know what, I don't want to be living this airline life and living in a hotel for 4 days at a time and being away from family. I just want to go be a trooper in New York State and go home every single night.
Yeah.
They left the airlines, applied to the state police, and eventually went back to the aviation unit and became pilots in the aviation unit.
Yeah.
Being pilots because that's what they're good at, right? Embry-Riddle graduates, West Point graduates, Naval Academy graduates. I mean, these are really, some of these people that I flew with in these 4 years are just amazing individuals.
Yeah.
Vast knowledge of experiences, combat tours,
Yep.
deployments. That's an endless book of knowledge.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there as a guy, a brand new guy with 600 hours flying small little airplanes. And I think I had maybe 70, 75 hours in a helicopter,
Yeah.
right? Flying a little small, tiny little helicopter. And I'm like, time to be a sponge, Louis. Time to soak all this up and learn everything you can
Yeah.
because you don't know what you don't know
Yeah.
until you find out you
Yeah.
don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think,
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing this right. And then they look at me like, dude, what are you doing? Well, I'm doing this. Yeah, cool story, but that's not right. That's unsafe. And you learn through their eyes and their experience that, hey, this is the way to actually do it.
Yeah.
Right? This is how you operate. This is what you do. And I learned so much from so many, a couple individuals in particular, like guys like Jim Bach, that still fly for the state police. Guys like Brian McCormick, that still fly for the state police. These guys are guys that I learned so much from. They were guys that were willing to talk to me about flying at any point in time. They took me up, they showed me the ropes, they showed me so many different things and really built me out as a professional pilot. And that's all I really wanted to do. I was like, hey, I get to fly helicopters, I get to fly airplanes, we got all these different missions that we do. I'm good, I'm never bored.
Yeah.
I never know when I show up to the station what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I could fly the governor one day. I could be flying fish the next day. I could go fly a police helicopter and chase people. I could search for elderly subjects that get lost in the woods. It happens all the time. You know? I could go rescue a hiker that fell off a mountain up in the Adirondacks and broke his leg, and now he can't extract himself from the mountain. So we fly the helicopter, put the hoist down, send down a rescuer. They have put him to the litter. We hoist them up, and we extract them out. We do all these different things, so all these wonderful things. It's really like a one-stop shop. It's like the greatest job in the state police.
Yeah.
And I was just happy, proud, you know. But at the end of the day, you still live in New York State. And you're still getting taxed. And you still got all these COVID restrictions. And you still got all these, and you still have cold weather. You know, my wife initially loved the cold weather. She's like, it's so good for my skin. You know? Makes me look so young. And then eventually she got to the point where, like, I'm depressed. Like, I am locked inside the house for 8 hours a day for 8 months.
Yeah.
And I can't go outside. I hate going outside, and it's gross. It's rough, right? And, you're like, and she's just like, I want to ride my motorcycle and go outside and sit on a hammock and swim in a pool and enjoy the warm weather and see palm trees. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good to
you know
me.
what my father had been doing for the last 14, 15 years before I moved down there, right?
Lucky.
So I was like, okay, but
You better
I got a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start looking. Okay, I can't promise you anything right now because we're comfortable.
Yeah.
Like my shovel, as Dave Ramsey says, of how much I'm making to cover my expenses was way bigger than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable I felt like for the first time in my life, I was like, I'm really comfortable. I don't have to worry about anything. And when something comes up, oh yeah, go ahead and pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care of it. And you know what? There was still plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't struggling.
Yep.
It took all those years, all my 20s, all my 30s. Now I'm 40 some odd years old. And for the first time in my life, I'm like, I'm not worried about money.
Yeah.
Right?
That's about how old I was.
Yeah.
40 years old. I was like, now for the first time in my life, I don't got to worry about money.
Yeah.
And then I felt like kind of like Forrest Gump, like, well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's one less thing I got to worry about.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Right?
Yeah.
So I started looking, and logically, what makes sense from my law enforcement aviation background? What makes sense? I started looking for aviation careers in law enforcement in other states. I said, let me look at Florida, where my father lives, and see what's available down there.
Yeah.
Let's look at Alabama, since I have history in Alabama, going to that military school in Alabama.
Yeah.
Let's look down there. I looked at Georgia. I look at Texas. I look at all these different places. I'm like, oh man, yeah, the starting pay is okay, you know, $75,000 to $80,000, but yeah, it's a government job at civilian level, and the pay increase isn't very much. It's just like,
Yeah.
I was like, that's nice, combined with my pension and my retirement, but I don't know, I kind of want more.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a buddy of mine that was flying for one of the regional carriers, Eddie Dandraw, and he had been for years calling me like, hey, Louie, when are you going to jump in over? When are you going to be an airline pilot? And my wife told me, over my dead body. There's no way. Like, I bent over backwards for you to do all these different things that you want to do.
Yeah.
You are never going to be an airplane pilot. And I'm like, baby, why not? What's going on? I don't trust those flight attendants. Just like that.
That's funny.
I'm like, well, you don't have to. You don't have to trust someone. Yeah,
trust me,
You're
right?
looking at me.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You know what? You see this hand right here? This hand cuts this hand, and this hand cuts this hand. So no, I'm not trusting you, and I don't trust them. So no, you're never going to be a pilot. I'm like, you're never going to be an airline pilot. I'm like, all right. So I keep looking, and Eddie calls me out of the blue, and he's like, Louie, they're offering all these bonuses for you to. And I mean, the airlines were short in 2021. going into 2022, after COVID, you get this V-shaped recovery, and all these senior pilots were given these severance packages and forced to retire early.
Yeah.
Now you got this spike in demand for air travel, and there was no pilots to fly. Right? And that's why the airlines were literally charging whatever they wanted for a ticket, and they were getting it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, they're trying to bump up their pilot numbers. They're hiring, and they're hiring like crazy, right? So he's like, oh, they're offering all these bonuses and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, oh, Eddie, my wife said no. So I kept on poking the bear, baby. I know you said no, but listen, this. You got this money, you got this money. I start off at this, which is a little lower than the government job flying law enforcement, but this is the amount of money I could be making 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, right? These are the charts, and this is at the current contract rates, which are going to change. I was like, that's what I was making before, and then I'm making my pension on top of that. And living in Florida, tax-free, because I could live anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll be tax-free.
Yeah.
It's not bad. She thought about it. She hemmed and she hawed. And she's like, okay.
She finally gave in.
She finally gave in because I was like, we could buy shoes and we could buy all the cute little purses and accessories that you like and all these.
Yeah.
Maybe you could get you a bigger Indian motorcycle.
I was going to say new motorcycle. Yeah.
Right? We could go buy a nice house in Florida and
With
this,
a
that, and the third with a pool.
Yep.
So she was like, she finally gave in because I know in order for me to get what I want, in life and to get here, you got to do some convincing, you got to do some negotiating, especially when it comes with your spouse and your significant other. You're not always going to get your way, but I hope I get my way 51% of the time. Maybe at least in my mind. Maybe it works the other way around. Maybe it's more like 60% her way, 40 my way. But as long as I go to sleep, I'm like, I won today. 51%. I'm good to go.
That's all that matters, man.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
So I ended up going to the airlines and being an airline pilot, and I am so well off right now.
Yeah.
Better than I deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's your hard work. I wouldn't say it's better than what you deserve.
It is absolutely incredible, the situation that I'm in right now that I never dreamed of flying for a major airline. And I just can't believe I'm where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Some days I wake up and I'm like, I got to pinch myself.
Yeah.
I go into work and I hop up front in the cockpit and I get up to 35,000 feet and I'm looking down and I'm like,
You're getting paid to do this?
That's crazy.
First of all, I'm getting paid to do this. Second of all, I'm like, all those years
Yeah.
that I said I wanted to do something like this, and I'm finally here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it never seemed far-fetched.
Yeah.
Seemed like a ring you could never attain. It's like you might as well say I'm going to be an astronaut.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool story, bro. You're never going to get there, but now I'm here. You're part of this elite 1%.
Yeah.
There's like 1% of the population is pilots.
Yeah.
And of that 1%, an infinitely smaller percentage is airplane pilots and helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
And an even smaller percentage of that are an ATP rated airplane pilot,
What's ATP?
airline transport
okay.
pilot. You got the highest rating that you could possibly have.
That's awesome.
You have an airline transport pilot rating, right? And then I think about sometimes the ethnic part of it.
Yeah.
How many what's the percentage of the entire pilot population that's a helicopter pilot, an airplane pilot, former law enforcement, former military, twice deployed combat veteran,
Yeah.
drill sergeant, and you're Latino,
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I carry this chip on my shoulder that I'm proud of the shit that I've done.
You
Nothing
should
wrong with
be.
Because
You
at the end of the
definitely
day, I carry my community behind me, and
Yes.
I don't necessarily mean the Latino community.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I reached this far,
Yeah.
and I've done this much stuff in my life. And now because I've reached this far, the people that are coming up behind me,
Yeah.
even if they're an aspiring Latino pilot. And
Yeah.
if someone's watching out there that's, you know, of that background, and there's like, hey man, I'm stuck in this rut, man. You don't have to be stuck in this rut. You can do whatever you want in this country and succeed in life. Because we moved here in 1978 with $100 in his pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in my house in Long Island in the late 70s, early 80s, and my first language was Spanish.
Yeah.
I went to school in Bayshore, New York. I didn't know a single English word.
Damn.
That's true.
Damn.
Okay, I didn't know English. I learned English in school on the fly. Before there was English as a second language classes.
Yeah.
It was like, oh well, you're here. I don't care if you don't speak English. You're
attention.
treated to the same standard as everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I had to learn on the fly English in school at a young age.
Yeah. All the adversity made you who you were, man.
Exactly.
Who you are, I should say. Yeah.
Yes.
I had every excuse that people in this day and age use. I'm Latino, I speak Spanish, I have trouble with English, I come from an impoverished family. I had all those excuses to say, you know what, I'm going to throw my hands, I suck at life, and I'm going to accept defeat and lose.
Yeah.
You had a good role model.
But I had a good role model, and that's another part of this conversation that you could get into, is that there's not enough of these role models.
Dude,
Yes.
I know. I know.
You know, it's like the government wants single parents,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially single
Yeah.
mothers.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they don't understand how important it is to have a father figure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that father role, that role model that teaches you as a little boy to become a man,
Yeah.
to put your pants on and man up and get shit
Yep.
done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And-
No, I know
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That society is in general is lacking that.
Yeah.
You know, they're lacking. You look at society's problems now. It's a lack of parenting.
Grandparents are raising kids.
Yeah, grandparents raising kids, but it's a lack of parenting. Whether it's a single parents, and in some cases they're dual parents
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
just don't raise their kids because
Here's a tablet.
they're worried
Here's
a
about their
tablet.
careers.
Or they're gone.
Dad works,
Oh, yeah.
mom
Yeah.
works. Here's
Yeah.
a tablet.
Yep.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to deal with you. Here's
Yeah.
a tablet. Go
Yep.
away.
Yeah.
Right?
Go do what you want.
Yeah.
There's a lack of that interaction in people saying my job, and this is really when I look at my role for my kids, it's to raise them to the age of 18 so that this way they could stand on their own 2 feet, come up to obstacles,
Yeah.
overcome adversity, be able to sidestep, readjust, and still succeed in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I didn't do that, then I failed at my job as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I hope my kids take with them, all 5 of them. You know,
Yep.
just like
Yep.
kept putting one foot in front of the other, no matter how
Don't give up.
hard.
No matter how
'Cause
hard
life,
it is.
life can be a bitch.
Yes.
And right when you
it's not fair.
you think it's
not
going to get
easy.
better,
Yeah.
and it gets harder, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it can't get any harder. I learned not to say that, you know, because
Yeah.
as soon as you think it's done beating the shit out of you, it's just going to knock you back down
Yes.
a little farther.
But
little
it's
farther.
going to make you stronger.
Well, you know, I think September of last year, I decided at my lowest low of my entire life, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to dwell on things out of my control anymore. I can't do it. And the second I
Exactly.
decided to just, you know, I'm going to control what I can, which is me, you know, eat better, exercise, you know, and then just
Yeah.
invest in myself and just, you know, hope
Absolutely.
and have faith that everything's going to be all right. You know,
Absolutely.
it's not much else you can really do in life. you know?
There's sometimes, and you know, things weren't always hunky dory for me because
Oh, yeah.
I have an ex-wife,
Yeah.
and back to your point, you can only worry about things that you can control.
Correct.
I can't control my ex-wife.
Yep.
If
Neither can I.
somebody out there has the cheat code for how to control their ex-wives, please call me and let me know because it's impossible.
Yeah.
Right. You can't cheat. You can't control something that's out of your realm of control,
Yeah.
and they're going to do. People around you are going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it. And they're going to think what they want to think. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm not going to let that put me down.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are shocked with me I've had conversations with people in the cockpit. I've had conversations with people when I was working in the state police. Hell, I've had this conversation in the military.
Yeah.
You know, in our Army unit. And they're shocked when they're like, Louis, you don't get insulted and you don't get upset by racial slurs and people putting you down and calling you names? I'm like, no. Why should I? But they're calling you racial names and they're putting you down, and like, so? Is that guy that just said something to me going to stop me from doing what I need to do? No matter what that guy thinks of me, I still have to wake up tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I still have to go to work. I got to put my pants on. I got to pay my bills. I got to take care of my family. I got to take care of my wife.
Yeah.
You know, I got to take care of my wife first, and then I got to take care of my wife last.
Yeah.
And I still got to do all these things. And what that person thinks of me has no effect on what I have to do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And there's so many people in this society, they're so thin-skinned and get butthurt because, oh my God, he called me X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He called me Y. I was put down at work.
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
can't
God.
stand
Like,
that. Yeah.
grow some freaking skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Do your job and worry about you.
Yeah.
You know, we always talk about that. Like, people, when they want to act like that and call names or talk about people, it's like has nothing to do with you. It's
Absolutely.
them. Has
Yeah.
everything to do with them.
People
and-
hurt people.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
Or miserable people
Yeah.
try to make people miserable because they're miserable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had a
Absolutely.
lot. I had a ton of concern, you know, especially doing this whole podcast thing,
Mm-hmm.
which got a little validation, you know, over the past, you know, couple months, having, you know, some, you know, big names out there on
Yeah.
a podcast. It's been great. And
Awesome.
This is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
this is awesome. And you know, but I've worried
Yeah, I'm not
so
a big
much.
name. I'm just another dude that just fucking succeeded.
You're a real dude, man, and like even having your dad on here, like that's just added
Awesome.
bonus.
Yep.
I never expected, and I didn't know he's law enforcement coming into this
Yeah.
or military, so it's
Yep.
way cooler.
Way
but
cooler.
yeah, no, I worry about judgment, and I'm getting a lot better, but you know, even still, you know, like I'm like, because you know, we're investing a lot of time into this and money and whatnot, but you know, we fully intend on doing something with it, which I'll tell you some stuff we have going on as soon as we're done recording, but
Yeah.
it's just one of those things, like when you feel the validation of what you're doing and you get to a point where like you're like, hey, like this is
I
pretty
made it.
fucking awesome. I made
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You know, and like, you know, especially, you know, having Ashke and Nadavadi and his wife on, we recorded Sunday, you know, just like, I'm like, some nobody like me
totally
is talking to this guy.
He
Right.
said Akshay. It's Akshay.
Akshay, yeah, sorry. Oh, I just slaughtered his name.
It's so
Yeah,
funny.
and his wife,
But yeah.
you know, and it was just, you know, incredible experience.
Yes,
And, you know,
that was awesome.
and
Who
it's,
was that?
so he's a Marine Corps veteran. He deployed. He was infantry, and he openly talked about severe PTSD. He lost one of his buddies to an IED, and I believe it didn't go off on his vehicle, and it killed his good buddy. And he had survivor's guilt, and he was about to commit suicide. He was, you know, he was alcoholic, drugs, all that stuff, and he just clicked one day, and he started just investing in himself, and he turned his life around. Now he wrote a book that's endorsed by the Dalai Lama. He's crossing Antarctica this November on skis with a 400-pound skid, unassisted.
Wow.
And it's you know,
It's like a 1,600-mile walk.
yeah,
Insane.
110 days, like
All by
and,
himself.
Yeah, him and his wife. We interviewed them this past Sunday remotely. Of course, they're in Norway. He's been training for I think 4 years for this.
Yeah. Yep.
you know.
4 years.
But him and his wife they're killing it, and it's cool because they're like us. They're the corny, annoying couple that's happily in love.
Yeah, I love it. I love
and,
seeing that.
Yeah, no, it's a
Yeah.
really cool experience. And but
You happy saying what?
People just being dorky and in love,
Yeah.
like real happiness, and it's just
it's rare.
It's
man.
Yeah.
different.
Yeah,
it
like,
is.
And you know when it clicks different.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
it's like with me and my wife. It's
Yeah.
like, and we're like, you know, it's other people. They really don't understand
Yeah.
what we have going on here.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and like
Yeah.
they may talk about you one way or the other, but what they really are is just envious of your situation.
Yeah.
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 You know,
Yep.
because you guys are good. You know,
Yeah.
you're happy. You're doing what you're doing, and
Yeah.
and as long as what you're doing brings you happiness,
Purpose,
and
man.
joy,
Yeah.
and purpose, and you could make some money doing it.
Yeah.
I've always said,
I'm waiting for that
if
part.
you could find the way to make a living doing something you truly enjoy to do,
Yeah.
then it's not work.
Yeah.
Like for him, it would be if he could find a way to make a lot of money fishing every single day, that would be him.
Yeah.
And me, I found a way to be flying as much as I can and being up in the air at 35,000 feet and looking down at the world and saying, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid to work, and this is not work.
Yeah.
Like,
Not many people can say
I don't have
that.
to fight with anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have to shoot anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have to argue with anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have any Facebook lawyers up here. I don't have any YouTube attorneys up
Yeah.
here. I don't have any Johnny Cochrans arguing with me. I don't have to go to court and argue with any defense attorneys. I don't have to do any of the things that I was doing before that was actually freaking work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know how crazy it is that I'm sitting up there and I'm like, I can't believe I'm up here.
Yeah.
And then you're talking to this 20-year captain that's sitting next to you, and he's complaining about the job that he's currently doing right now. And I'm looking at it, I'm like,
What?
crazy?
perspective,
I've experienced
Yes.
that. I've experienced it my whole
perspective,
life.
like, wait a minute.
Yep.
You're complaining about your schedule? You're complaining about this crew meal that we're getting for free?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, you're talking to the wrong guy. Like,
Don't complain.
I
to him.
spent
Yeah.
days where I'd be out there for hours on the road. First snowstorm of the year. You talk to any police officer, first snowstorm of the year, the worst.
Yeah.
Because everyone has to relearn how to drive all over again. Cars all over the freaking road. You're out there digging people out, helping people out, calling tow trucks. They're flying all over the place. You got icicles coming off your Stetson. You're out there like, what am I doing out here? What am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
All right? That's work.
Yeah.
You get called to a bar fight and you just see a melee and you're just like,
Yeah.
that's work. This guy's complaining about his crew meal. I'm like,
That's crazy.
I'm looking at him like, cool story, bro.
Yeah.
I'll eat your food then, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's just fine.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't believe I'm eating for free and I'm still getting paid some money to go spend later on another meal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, seriously,
Come on.
man.
Yeah.
It's freaking
Like
awesome.
I didn't get money for food when I was working as a cop. Like
Yeah.
I had to find
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes between calls, you know, to go and get something to eat and scarf it down real quick
Yeah.
before I got the next call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always the healthiest food,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and now I'm up here and I'm just like, there's really nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
Like,
Such a blessing.
If I ever complain about what
Yeah.
I'm doing right now, then I need to stop doing this.
Well, yeah, and like I could still complain about shit I have going on, but I realize over the past year and a half that your life everything can be taken away.
Yes.
Split second.
Absolutely.
You know? So, you know, and when you go through really hard times, you appreciate things that much more. That's, I think, the main reason I think adversity and death, unfortunately, depend on, you know, I think it's all really important because it gives life contrast and it
Yeah.
allows us to appreciate
Your experiences.
everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tours in Iraq,
Yeah.
seeing how people live in other parts of the world,
Yeah.
you're just like, man,
No
like,
reason
wow.
for anybody to complain here.
There's no
Yeah.
reason for anyone to complain. We live, I mean, people that say that they're really poor in this country, if you put their situation somewhere else, they're actually rich.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't think people that are not as well off really understand
Oh, they don't.
that they're not really that bad.
You're eating,
Like,
you're not poor.
Exactly. You know, like I don't think at any point in time when he was struggling in the late 70s, early 80s, working all those different jobs, he ever said, you know what, we're really poor.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we have what we need, the bare necessities. I would want all these different things, but we just can't afford it.
Yeah.
So we have to wait. You got to put it off.
Yeah.
And those are the things that other people are not willing to do.
Yeah.
Because everyone is in it for instant gratification. I want
Yes.
this, I want this, I
Yeah.
want this.
Talk about that.
And they don't budget and they don't set themselves up for success.
Yeah.
You
Correct.
cannot spend more than you make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot operate your household like the federal government.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
You don't have a printing
Yeah.
press in your house. And you don't have the ability to issue T-bills and sell
Yeah.
T-bills. Right? It just doesn't happen.
Yep.
You know, it's funny we're having this conversation because I had this conversation with my 25-year, it's not even my kid. It's my stepson.
Yeah.
I consider him my kid because I basically raised him
Yep.
from my ex-wife's first kid. And I had a conversation. I had to be upfront with him. I was like, listen, you graduated high school, you're 17 years old. I want you to picture when you were 17, thinking about what your life would look like in 8 years. Are you satisfied where you are right now, today? Right now you're 25, going on 26. Are you satisfied where you are today? You know, ask the open-ended question. He looks at me, he's like, no. All right, what are we going to do about it?
Yep. Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? Because, again, if I do him no service if I spoon feed him the answers.
Yeah.
If I spoon feed you the answers of the test, you know, I'm not doing, you're not learning anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to ask you the open-ended question and see if I could get the right answer out of you.
Yeah.
All right? That's my mentality. So what are we going to do to get you out of where you are?
Mm-hmm.
Because you make X, you spend Y, and X is less than Y. There's a problem here, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing with your day?
Yeah. I mean, how many people have dreams and never pursue their dreams
And
because
never
they think
pursue
it's
their dreams.
too far off? you know?
Exactly.
And if you look at it like it's a giant mountain rather than just just one foot in front of the other, you can't look at the
That's
top.
it.
Just keep one
That's
foot in
it. You
front
got
of
to
the
eat the
other.
elephant one piece at a time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're working 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
and this is for a lot of people in society,
Yeah.
if you work 8 hours a day, I'll give you 8 hours of sleep. Me personally, I don't get 8 hours of sleep. I get 4 to 6. I'm good to go. Let's go. I got something to do.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, my body clock is 4 to 6. Louis, get the hell up. You got something to do.
I wish I was like that. I'm
know
like,
what
I
I
would
mean?
love to
Yeah.
get 10.
Oh, my wife, trust me, my wife's the same way. She's like, I'm just going to stay here in bed.
Yeah.
She loves to sleep.
She
Me
wants
too.
to do a part 2 with your wife being on.
Yes,
here,
I
by the way.
do.
Oh, my wife's
I
a
would love
rock
it.
star.
Yeah.
I would
My
love
wife
it.
is an absolute
Yeah.
rock star. I love her to death. She is
Aw.
amazing. And she's I don't know what the hell I'm doing with her because she's definitely out of my league.
Aw.
I'm like
Say the
looking
same
at myself
thing,
and I'm like, you sure? Like, all right. I'm just waiting for that day to have happened where she's like, all right, I'm good now. I'm like, God damn it.
Too good to be true.
Right. Yeah, she's amazing. She's a rock star, and in some ways, she's had it harder. I think about what she's done. It's not easy raising 5 kids. You know, 4 kids full time, and when I had my daughter with my ex-wife part time.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think that's a harder job because you don't get that adult interaction on
Yeah.
a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always gave her the option. I always said, you know what? When we got married, if you want to work, I'm all for it. Work if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to work. And she'd been the type of person when I met her. She always worked.
Yeah.
So that first year or two after we got married, and she wasn't working, she felt useless. She felt guilty, like she felt she wasn't contributing. And I had to tell her, listen, you may not be contributing financially, but you're contributing in other ways.
Well, yeah.
Because
I feel like that all the
nobody,
time.
Yeah, I say it to her.
nobody could raise your kids like you can.
Yeah. Yep. No, you're right.
So if you want to work, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to at least cover daycare and then still have money left over to spend on yourself or
Yeah.
on whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, don't work just to pay for daycare.
Yeah.
Because now you're just
Makes
paying
no
someone
sense.
else to raise your kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
So I was fortunate enough in my situation where she didn't have to work, and I told her flat out, "Hey, you don't want to work, you don't work."
Yeah.
And she got used to it over time. But it's still hard on her because she tells me quite often, I'm always waiting for you. You deployed to Iraq. I'm like, literally, Matt, no lie. We got married. 2 days later, I was on a plane to go to Afghanistan
Holy shit.
for a year.
Oh my gosh.
And because of my bad experiences with my ex-wife, and because a lot of my family had trust issues with my ability to pick women,
Yep.
right? She left Puerto Rico. She'd been living in Puerto Rico for 33 years. She doesn't know anything other than Puerto Rico. She doesn't know anybody in New York State. She picked up herself and her 2 kids and moved in with my parents and stayed with them while I was overseas. So this way, they could show her the ropes, show her how things here in New York work,
Yep.
show her how to get to the grocery store, things at the bank. You know, they on just going from Puerto Rico to New York. A lot of people don't understand that. That's a huge shift.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is.
You know, that's a huge cultural shift on how things operate over there compared to here.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same shift that you would see going to some European country. Like I would go to Europe, I would have no idea how the banks work, the hospitals. But she had the ability to stay with them and show them and demonstrate to them, I'm serious. I'm not Lou's ex-wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I'm serious. Right? So she had to do that and come to this country, and she didn't speak very good English. And now she speaks fantastic English. She says I pick on her. I absolutely love her accent.
Yeah.
Her accent is like, it's like listening to Sofia Vergara on the, what is it, The Modern Family?
Yes, I love it. You would know.
right?
I'll show you a picture, but yes.
Yes,
I know what you
it's like
mean.
listening to Sophia. I mean,
love
I think
it.
Sofia
I like
Vergara's
accents.
accent in that show is a little fake.
Yeah.
But she's got the
Little
real accent.
exaggerated.
It's a little exaggerated.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely a little exaggerated.
Yeah.
But it's like that, and I'm just like, it's so
so
cute.
cute,
And I
yeah.
start laughing, and then when I start laughing, she thinks I'm picking on her. I'm like, no, baby, I'm not picking on you. I think it's adorable. Like
Yeah.
you sound adorable. You
Yeah.
know.
That's
but
cute.
she cooks. She is like that 1950s American wife. Like she
Yeah.
cooks, she cleans, she stays at home. I come home, the meals are cooked, and the house is taken care of. The laundry's done. The kids are done their homework. They're fed, and I'm just
Talking about
like,
your wife or
that's
her?
like-
right. And I'm just like, holy shit! Like what he had.
Yeah.
'Cause my mom was always home.
Yeah.
My mom never worked.
Yeah.
He was the one who I was always working.
Yeah.
And my mom stayed at home and raised us.
Yeah.
And that's what my kids have.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing. It's an absolute
yeah.
blessing. Because in some ways, that job, in many ways, that job is harder
Than my
than
job.
what,
Yeah.
I mean, what I got to do. I know what I got to do. There's a book on what
Yeah.
I have to do, whether it's a state police manual, whether it's a flight manual. Hey, this is what you could do. This is what you can't do. It's pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
You know, there is really no manual on raising a kid.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trial and error.
It is, because we're learning.
Oh, yeah.
We're
Right?
trying to
Yeah.
teach the kids.
And not
you know?
only that,
Yeah.
but not every kid is the same. Like
Exactly.
you're gonna have one kid that is just like sweet as gold. He's like the perfect kid, and you never have to tell him anything. And then you have another one that's gonna have a little attitude problem. You know, like, all right, how am I gonna deal with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's
Yeah.
just no manual on it.
Yeah.
It's not like me where I go to work and I got a manual. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is how I do my job. Cool story. Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
This is how you're a drill sergeant. This is 350-6.
Yeah.
That's Army Regulation 350-6. These are the things you could do, and these are the things you can't do. And as long as you stay here, you don't go here, you're good.
Yeah.
Right? There's no manual for being a mom and for being a dad and for being a parent.
Every situation and everyone's different. You
Right.
can't.
You-
Yeah.
exactly.
It's only the manual's changing every day.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No kidding. Yeah.
and it's amazing how much you learn and you develop as a parent as
Yeah.
you go along and you deal with different situations.
Yep.
Trial and error.
It's all trial and error
Yeah.
because you really don't know. It's like it's not like you grow up through life. Yeah, this is how you do school, and this is how you balance a checkbook, and this is how you pay your bills, and that's how you do a budget, and this is how you do geometry and algebra, and this is about American history. When did you ever get a parenting class?
Yeah.
Ever?
No.
That's
Right?
not
You just
important.
don't.
When do you
Yep.
ever get a parenting class?
Yeah.
It never happens. So it's complete trial and error.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's why I bless her soul, bless her heart. I don't know how she does it. I know that when it's daddy daycare day, I'm like, all right, kids, you're screwed. You're going to be marching lockstep. You're going to have Chef Boyardee and hot dog chunks.
Hey.
And if you're lucky, I'll fire up the barbecue and I'll cook something because I'm really good at that. But everything else inside here,
Yep.
it's questionable at best.
Yeah. Yeah. No, pretty much same here.
It's like so us. Yeah. Though I do work and all the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do.
I will help I'll supplement. Help is maybe over.
Yeah, I'll be like,
I'll
who
do
put the dishes in the dishwasher like this? Like, okay, he tried. You know, like,
Yeah, that's pretty.
Is there a
much it.
manual for that?
Yeah.
We need manuals.
So
you know what I mean?
funny.
Like, well, where's FM 50 dash dishwasher?
Exactly.
So funny.
How to load the dishwasher.
Yeah.
All the plates will be on the bottom. Dress right, dress ready front.
Yeah.
Here we go. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Oh man.
The cups go on top.
Yeah.
You know, the little plates go on the bottom next to the big plates. You know,
It's funny.
come on, man. Quit busting my
Yeah.
stones. They're in the dishwasher. Cool story. Turn the damn thing on.
Exactly. Oh man. Well,
Yeah.
holy cow! We actually were at 2 hours and 57 minutes. This will be-
Wow.
You're editing this one. 'cause
Yeah,
this one's
right.
long.
That'll take a long time because I have to learn how to do it good.
That's all good. But yeah, no, this is awesome. I appreciate
Oh, and, I
you
Amazing.
could,
guys.
and we could talk for hours more.
yeah.
I got all kinds of shit that we
Oh,
could
yeah.
talk
But
about.
amazing story, like start to finish. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I
no,
appreciate
definitely.
It's been a ride.
Yeah.
And to the people that are starting off on the
Mm-hmm.
ride, enjoy the journey.
Yeah. Or if you fell off the ride, get back on, keep going.
Yeah, don't
If
stop.
you-
Don't quit.
You're gonna fall back
Yeah.
off. You're gonna fall off.
That's the most important part.
Yeah.
It wasn't all rainbows, candy canes, and lollipops for me. I had plenty of bumps in the road. I had a divorce. I had a house repossessed. You know, I went through a foreclosure. You know, I went through financial troubles. I went through credit card debt. I went through all the things that people typically go through.
Yeah.
And he went through a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
You know, because he didn't have the money. He went through credit
Yeah.
card debt. He went through financial
Yeah.
struggles. It's not all candy canes and lollipops and perfect. It's not always a perfect situation.
Yeah.
It's how you deal with adversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adapt, adjust,
Yes.
and overcome.
Yeah.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all it is.
That's all it is. And the people that get ahead in life are the ones that are able to adapt, adjust, and overcome.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, almost be like a chameleon and change to the changing environment and the situation.
Yes.
Absolutely, man.
And never quit.
Never.
Yes.
Never, ever, ever quit.
Yeah.
Because you're just quitting on yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amen to that.
Oh man. So yeah, for the record, we drove about 2.5 hours down here after getting out of work. Now it's 12:36.
12:36
So we're gonna
and
drive
2.5 hours is
back.
3 in the morning.
And we both work tomorrow, so
Yeah.
Hardcore, man.
it's all good.
We can do
It's
it.
worth it. It's
Oh
worth
yeah, for sure. We've
Because
done.
the guys got so much stuff to talk about now on the way back. About this
yeah, right. I'll
conversation,
Hell
sleep the
yeah.
whole way.
You know?
You will.
No.
You might.
No, I don't know if I could. I don't know. But
Yeah. No.
we appreciate
everyone.
your time. Yeah. Thank you for letting us come here and talk to you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to go this long, but it was
No,
fun.
no, by all means, yeah.
Done.
It was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Well, everyone have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.